I'm all set. Can we get a genuine Rowan here though? Just it's from the man himself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are we gonna open with this? All right, Rowan here.
Yes, yes.
It's like 90% real and then 10% YouTube
Yeah,
voice.
yeah,
Rowan here.
yeah. I love it.
Welcome back to Pod Practice. I'm Coach Mike. With me, as always, are Alex Atkins and Quinn Feiner. Today we have Rowan here, the reigning Ulti-World Player of the Year, YouTube sensation, and fellow podcaster. Rowan, how's it going?
Doing super well here, and yeah, we were joking before the show started. I kind of had to, beg my way onto this podcast, but thanks for having me. I'm
I
excited to
thought we were
be
going to
here
keep that a
and
secret.
excited for most of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, we don't have to talk about finals. We've talked about finals enough on our own anyway.
Oh, I know, I've been listening.
But actually, because I know we're going to try to hit a lot of topics today, and I want to make sure that we hit one that's really interesting to me, which is Truck's offense in 2022. I was actually listening to the first episode of your pod, One Throw, to prep a little bit, and a couple quotes stood out to me that both of you and Johnny said. I think you said, let's see here, I have it written down. You said, "I'll retire before I play Hex," and I bring this up because a lot of people have, for whatever reason, including us, compared your play style to Hex. And another thing that Johnny said is overcoaching stifles the creativity that each player can bring. And I like that a lot. It makes me think of actually an old basketball coach, Tex Winter, who was like an assistant with Phil Jackson and the triangle offense in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he would say his 7 principles of a sound offense, his 7th was utilize individual talents. And I think that's it goes hand in hand with what Johnny was saying. And you also mentioned that the principles of Truck's offense were possession and tempo. And I actually feel like that's a good allegory. Like the one throw at a time versus pod practice is a good allegory for the Truck offense versus Bravo offense, because we have sort of similar principles, but Truck and One Throw are sort of more polished and maybe a bit more organized than Bravo and
Yeah,
pod
but
practice.
pod practice and getting the work done. We love blue collar, teams. So if that's working, that's working. But yeah, regarding the Hex line, that was I hadn't done my homework on Hex too much, so I was pushing back on this very scripted. Like you're in a Hex and you're passing to the right people. So I kind of made that comment and then talked a little bit with Felix and his team and learned that it's
Mm-hmm.
not exactly that. So I do apologize towards the Hive and Hex community. I do appreciate them innovating and trying to push the sport forward. That's what I've been trying to do for a while. So sorry to you, Felix, but the similarities I think comes from the core of possession offense, and I think we talked about it on our podcast. But Johnny went to William and Mary, which didn't recruit as well as the other teams in the region, and maybe they didn't have the top end talent, but they had him and Gus Norbaum and other handlers that just reset the disc phenomenally. And when he came over to the Breeze first in 2021, like Johnny, let's take that William and Mary offense and play some small ball. Because as you've seen, I mean, it's crazy watching the ADL in your division in the West. It's like huck after huck, and it's like 80% hucks. That's such a great stat, but that's so many turnovers. So we're like
Mm-hmm.
pushing back on that, and the field is so big and offense is so easy. Let's just walk the disc up, reset the disc. Quinn said it in one of these episodes. We hate the sideline. Like we'll either look off people on the sideline or just like swing it right back and just try to move the disc, and it's a lot harder to defend. So I wouldn't say there's so much secret sauce in terms of the structure and the system, but just, hey, take the easy throw, take it early, and then the next throw is probably going to be easier because the defense is slightly out of position.
Yeah, totally. What can you talk a little bit about your role specifically and how you fit into it? Because like I think you're a true hybrid in the sense I'll see you make a 40-yard dump cut almost, where it seems like you're starting downfield and all of a sudden you've teleported to the backfield. How, like is this
Yeah,
just are you just flowing?
yeah, just flowing. It's been a long arc on my career where I used to be the runner who was just covering miles and miles each game. And then over the last 2 seasons, when I had two really bad hamstring injuries over the like during the pandemic and leading up and leading out, so I've just had no legs. So I kind of carved out this spot where, hey, I'm just gonna stand at one or two in the stack and make a horizontal slash for our break throwers. And if that's not there, I have the flexibility to either take that deep or just come back around for more of a handoff and stay in the handler space and try to create there. So I think what makes it easy for me is the ability to do everything. So then the defense doesn't know exactly what to stop and I can feed off their decision and their priorities.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like you have so many counter options available, really, for all seven of you. It's hard for me to tell if it's baked in or if you guys are just just out there playing frisbee.
Yeah, what we do, I think, well is I was talking with Tyler Monroe. He's our captain, and he's been he's like he gets slept on. He's so good. But what we talked about is we also know each other well, so we do such a good job of cutting for each other's like confident and powerful throws, which I think makes all the difference. So it's not like we're playing the same system or cutting for the same people the same way. Like I know what Andrew's going to throw, Johnny's going to throw, what Tyler's going to throw, and try to open up that space a half a second before they get it, and then attack it when they look at you.
Yeah, Tyler definitely has that around high release sort of backhand
Yeah,
and pivot thing.
the higher your hand goes, the bladier it comes in. So
The-
we're safe.
Has he always had that throw? Mike Nutt and I actually we were just like out running and throwing a little bit, and like talking about that throw and trying to replicate it. And Nutt had it a little bit, but none of us had it like he has it. Has he
It's
always
tough.
had it?
He has it, and he has it in the wind. And usually, if like
Dude.
that, there's wind, and you throw up a high release blade, like it's gone. But I think he's just thrown it so many times. He had the green light at his small college GW, and yeah, he's thrown it for years. He's added kind of an airbound slow release, so you can't totally, if everybody's screaming on the sideline, high right hand, then he'll hit that
sure.
airbound. He threw against you guys in pool play. So he has the counter, which if anybody's listening, you need to be really good at one thing and have a good counter.
Yeah, yeah. Let's keep it simple. Kins, so you also are known for a little bit of a high release, but yours is a little bit different. Do you think
He's
anything when you see Tyler throw that and versus your
No,
throw?
but it's cool that he throws it in the wind confidently. I prefer it going downwind for sure. Downwind, I find it very useful. In other winds, not as useful potentially.
Yeah, yours. I feel like yours, you're able to kind of get up and over and drive it a little flatter. I know you can like flip it up too, but I remember I think we were going like super, maybe it was like flat, and then there's this one point where you just got it and just like kept throwing that maybe 3 out of 4 throws right in a row, and it's
Yeah,
like, damn, nobody adjusted.
yeah. That's kind of the Kins highlight from finals is probably in my mind, he throws a
Good
lot of
job
those high
for Ed. I'm
release
sure it
ones.
was pretty
Yeah,
good.
just that's just kind of how the wind, figured in that game.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
But one question I
good
did
throw.
think of while you were talking, Rowan, is you mentioned that you coming off a couple injuries out of COVID, yet arguably, your best season uh, as a player individually, at least, and then also as a team. So I just wonder, like, is that you know correlated to like? Do you think there's anything into the something about the injuries forcing you to play a certain way and actually like it really helping your game, or is that just a product of the team being good, like maybe just
Yeah.
happenstance?
I think definitely the team got better, and I can touch on that because they're both the reasons. For me personally, I think just where Ultimate's headed, like to use the pandemic as a before and after, I was making a lot better plays before the pandemic and more highlight plays, and I was throwing the disc deep more, but I was overcutting, getting the disc too much, and like turning it over too much. So while it looked like I was a better player and I was having these like huge games and big impact, then I was also like costing the team with possessions and, again, like overcutting, getting the disc at the wrong spots. And at the same time, I was also not the best team player in that time. It was like a lot about me, and the focus was on me. And kind of after that pandemic with the injuries, I knew I couldn't have an impact on the field. In 2021, I was walking. First game back, I got like 2 touches against New York. It was bad. I had like no hamstrings in 2021 and one last year. That's kind of how I did the math. So so it was a lot of just letting the teammates do more, which was a mental shift, which made us instantly better, and then also recognizing, hey, we have Johnny kind of bringing the small ball, William and Mary offense. As me as like the leader on the offense, like I need to live by it, or else nobody else is really going to buy in. And if I'm
Yeah.
out there shooting it and doing what I used to do, like it could have possibly crashed. So just got a little bit more humble, which helped a lot, and then also just kind of bought into the system for really the first time, and both things really changed my game and saved some legs too, like just letting Christian and Cole and Tyler do the work downfield, let me play while my hamstring still was a little bit
Yeah, and I
dicey.
think that's so interesting because I was even talking to Mike Lee. I mentioned to you the other day, Mikey, that some of the best I've felt that some of the best, times that I've been playing Ultimate, I've been a little injured. And I would love to find that balance of not being injured and still playing well and, taking a step back because that seems to be like a sweet spot. But I really relate to like a lot of what you just said when commenting on that. So I think that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
and one thing I will give you, like you're a lot younger than me, I think the way you can see it is, hey, pick your spots almost like you're injured, even if you're healthy, and that's just going to make you better on Sunday or later that year or even longer in your career. So I think just being like an efficient player is something that's like a skill
Yeah,
in
that's what
itself.
stood out to me when you talked about it. It's just like that mindset of not trying to do too much, allowing to be more of a, you still have all your unique special talents, but utilizing those talents to be extremely efficient within the team and within the offense is a mindset that seems to, come on to us when we're injured. And so finding that finding that while healthy will be maybe a big breakthrough for a lot of us.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm healthy for the first time, I think, since pre-pandemic right now, and yeah, it's starting to come back. I'm coming off the field like really tired, and I'm like, I just like, damn, I would be burnt out if this was like a real game. So I need to also start to like preach or like live
And
what
worst
I'm
comes to
preaching.
worst, we just
We'll see what
force it, Like we can injure ourselves on purpose. So like if it comes to that, like that's what we got. If that's what it takes,
Right.
Let
Yeah.
me know how that one goes, and I'm gonna try to stay healthy as long as
It does
I
also
can.
show like talk so much about how much of it and performance is mental. Like we hyper focus on this physical part of the game, and like I got to be this fast and this and this, and then you realize like when you're locked in and dialed in mentally, like that is what takes your game to the highest of levels. So I find that really interesting,
Yeah.
honestly.
I was, trying to trademark the holistic approach to Ultimate last year. For the last 2 seasons I was injured, I couldn't even train, run, do field workouts. But I went to the pool because I had a weakness. I couldn't breathe well. That's why I was wearing the nose strip all season. I never had good, like, could never breathe. I was always out of breath. Was doing my hot yoga, was doing some mental work, breath work. 'Cause I couldn't train. And like, it's a holistic approach. It's all mental. It's all spiritual too. Can't neglect the spiritual.
Yeah. Well, can you go into detail? What does it mean to you when you say holistic approach?
I think, yeah, it's so obvious, like being more athletic and being more like better at throwing. You can see that on the field. So the physical side of Ultimate and the skill development it's easy to see. So that's why people are always working on that. It takes a lot of like courage to like spend time on stuff that you don't know if it's working, whether that is like mental resiliency, mental toughness, or these kind of outside the box thing, so to speak. But I tested them, and like the test went through the roof, and I'm still on that kick on. There's so much more than on the field skills to enhance your game and also the teammates around you.
In your the 3-part Who is Rowan series, which was sweet, by the way, you talked a lot about, sort of hustling and focusing so much on ultimate. Um, how many hours a week do you think you are just focused purely on training in some, or even like from the holistic sense?
Yeah, that's fluctuated. Right now, it's at an all-time high because I've had some more like stability and comfort. But a lot of the ultimate hustle was running like youth ultimate stuff and trying and like the YouTube, and it was non-training. So that was the weird part where it's like my life is around ultimate, but I can't train or do anything because I'm setting up these camps. I'm actually coaching, these 6-year-olds, and there's like a million
Yeah.
things going on. So when I felt that that was getting just in the way and I only have a couple years left, I'm sure, then I started to dial back the non-training and playing ultimate side, and now I kind of center myself around, getting good sleep, getting a diet, almost living like a professional athlete.
Yeah,
But
totally.
I still have to hustle a little bit. But right now I'm in the gym a little bit, running a little bit, um, yeah, doing a well-rounded approach, throwing a lot more than I have in the past. 'Cause
Um, sorry, Quinn, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna backtrack before we get too far, just like a tiny bit. You mentioned Cole Jurek a second ago, and like letting him do more. I'm curious about your perspective on him and how he's grown as a player. I played with him in 2018, 2019 U24 team, and I think both of us were near the bottom ish of of that roster, and now he's I
He's
consider
a
him to be one of the
force.
better. He's incredible. I consider him to be one of the better hybrid mid deep cutters in the game. So I'm just curious on your perspective on him and how he's grown and his kind of player arc.
yeah, it's such an interesting because him and Andrew came to us from Minnesota late last year. So it's almost like they met us in the U.S. Open, and that was the first time we saw them. I thought the game plan for Cole was like D-line. Like, this dude is a killer on defense. He's going to come and help us on the turn. But how it happened, I don't think I was a little injured. I don't think I played any in the
Yeah,
pool
you
played.
didn't play against us in that
And
first game.
so, yeah, we also were late for a flight. So I think Cole maybe was like, hey, let's run Cole on O, and we just never looked back. It was absolutely incredible. I think what he brings to the game is he's that like 10 out of 10 deep cutter, but most of those players in the game have to just like dump the disc back to the handler when they catch it outside the end zone, or like they're one dimensional. But he's got the throws. He's also super quick laterally, and
Yeah.
he defends on a turn. That's I mean, truck stop. We didn't get broken on in pool play at nationals. We gave it up maybe 10 times, but got it back each 10 because we had like Cole, who's just an incredible defender. So he's, in my opinion, what you want as a like your true deep cutter. Has the disc skills, lateral quickness, mobility, and also plays defense on a turn. And
Yeah,
like,
that lateral
yeah,
component.
it's special.
We had Matthew A.G. Jarvis guarding him a lot, but and I think Jarvis has a speed advantage, but not laterally, not even
Hmm.
close.
Yeah.
Watching
Yeah,
Jarrett
you
go
just don't
back and
think that
forth.
from a big, like you don't expect him to do like this hesitation, like stutter step, and then you're 10, 5
Yeah,
yards away.
yeah, and when you talk about his skills, it's not. It's like it really fits into your style too. Like he's got those skinny break
Oh,
throws, the small ball
absolutely.
stuff. He can fill in
We
really
can't
well
really Yeah, well, we can't really afford to just have like a one-dimensional, you know,
on
deep
the
cutter
way you
on
guys play.
line.
Oh,
Would work.
um, so you were talking a little bit about the hustle with YouTube and coaching and clinics. I wonder. I want to ask a little bit about. So you've been making videos for maybe a decade or so, I think, and
Yeah, maybe 5, 6 years. Probably
It
not,
was
not my
not quite that long.
career.
Um,
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw them, I didn't know who you were yet, and I was like, "Who is this guy? And how have I never heard of him?" And then all of a sudden, turns out you were actually a really good player. And that it just I remember like the convergence being very confusing, like how I just had no idea who you were, and then all of a sudden you were like at the top of the sport. And it was kind of blew my mind that like so the first team you tried out for was Ironside 2013 or it was 2012, 13, the
The
13th
23rd.
seed. And the fact that you could even make a team or being competitive, like I had a couple thoughts out of that story that you guys were talking about on your pod. And the first one, it was like, it's cool to hear that, somebody of your stature had such like humble beginnings and like had to go through that very relatable sense of like, I just got fucking cut by this team I'm trying out for. But also like, what like, how the fuck are you such a good athlete that in that short amount of time that you could be considered for a team like that? Like, I assume that's from your
Uh,
multi-sport background.
it
Uh,
was one thing, I think. I talked to Ben Katz just a couple, or at Tep, I think, after, the story came out, because we were both part of all that, those years. You know, he was the last cut on the year. I made it, and then we both got cut the next year. But he's like, I remember the play that made you the team, and I had kind of forgotten it, but it was just like this floaty ball, and then I just like it was my deep D. I was getting up back then, was dunking easy like 360s and like other cool dunks, and then I just got this like really big deep D, and like not every year, like I'm not sure like for Bravo, if like you have room for that project on the end of the roster. Some years you take one or two, some years you're like overbooked, but that year they happen to have room for like a project. So there was a couple things that went well, but it was my deep defense that I'm sure made them gamble.
you talked about finding, you started playing because your brother played summer league. Um, what was it about Ultimate though? Like why did you want you could have was there like why not
I
pursue a
think it
different
was
sport?
just a sport. I don't think I could have. Well, like I saw Ultimate, and then I was like trying to try out for the Eastern Connecticut's basketball team again. Like I'd quit the year before, like after a month as the last walk on, and then I was pissed. I'm like, I shouldn't have quit. I want to play again. So it wasn't my only focus when I first learned it. Once I got cut straight up that year in basketball, like I think I ran out of sports. I'm 23, out of college. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, what other sport can I play competitively? And as I continued to play Ultimate, it got competitive fast, and I was hooked.
That's pretty crazy. Kins, how old are you now? Are you 24?
Yeah, 24.
Can you imagine
No, no,
having only been playing for a year? You're
Y'all both played
yeah.
early, right? Ken and both started in high school.
Kin's earlier than me, but I started playing like pickup and stuff in like middle school, high school. Yeah.
But for a question for you guys,
Yeah.
we talk about this in DC a lot. Is sometimes that the ultimate lifer has like a ceiling, and I don't know if like a lot of players that y'all played with in youth have made it through the pipeline, or that 20-year-old that really hasn't played much but has that like secret weapon, so to speak, or a high ceiling. Like where do y'all see like youth players? Would you rather take the lifer who's well rounded, or like do you see players that are just going to be way better than somebody
yeah.
that's been playing 5 years?
I have a ton of thoughts on this,
Yeah,
Kins.
I mean it's so hard. It's like projecting who's gonna. It's kind of like reminds me of when you're making teams, just like for college, like projecting who's gonna, get better. I think the most important thing for me is trying to figure out, and it's super hard, but trying to figure out who cares the most about getting better, because that's the first and foremost, like most important thing. Even if they've been playing since they were a little kid, or they are, going to start playing at like 18 years old. But if the 18-year-old, has decided that he wants to commit his life to like trying to play high level ultimate, like I would, personally usually want to invest more in that person than maybe the person that's 18, been playing for a long time, but just kind of does it on the side and is maybe trying to like explore new things. So like that's always one thing that I'm trying to, assess when thinking about that question. Because I think it's the most important regardless of like how long they've been playing. But I do love people that can throw a frisbee. So if they've been playing for a long time and they can, have a bunch of different throws and stuff, maybe, maybe you throw them a spot because they're a little more versatile.
I think it's this question is super interesting and something I've actually thought about quite a bit. Um, like going into college, it's obviously it's awesome to have those players that have been playing for 10, 15 years. But like Kins was saying, it's more about like who wants to get better because a lot of those players going into college that have been playing for so long have been dominating the sport for a long time. And they probably don't think they have to work super hard or probably don't have to do stuff out of practice and all of that. So they hit that, like you were saying, they hit that ceiling because they don't think they need to do all this stuff and train outside of and go to the gym and all of that shit that like you absolutely have to do if you want to be an elite club player. And like you can still be a good college player, but once you get to club, like you have to be doing that stuff. And I find that some of the people that have been good for so long don't understand what it takes to make the jump to being an elite club
Yeah.
player compared to the guys that haven't been good and have a chip on their shoulder and want to be good, and they just like keep getting better because they want it and they're doing all that stuff that the players that have been good for a long time aren't.
Yeah, and like on a team like Colorado, how many people that make the A team are you guys at 100% that played youth in YCC, or is there like 2 to 3
Um,
athletes? Like, what's the breakdown on
yeah,
your like last
it's
couple years?
it's kind of year to year, sort of like what you're talking about. Like, do we have room for a quote unquote project player? Actually, 20 Kins's last year, we took at least one player who hadn't played, which is when I say that out loud, it's kind of insane. Like, basically, most players have played some sort of high school or youth at Colorado at this point. When I first started coaching the team, not quite 10 years ago, it was a lot different though. Even then, maybe half the team had experience. What kind of comes to mind though, I had a conversation in 2014 with Brody actually, and he said even back then he thought that the sport was getting less athletic because it was like a lot of youth or players that were going into college started as middle schoolers, high schoolers as their primary sport, and generally those players are not as athletic as the ones playing, traditional
Soccer,
sports.
football, basketball.
Exactly. I don't know if that's true or not, but like the skill over the last decade has shot through the roof. I feel like athleticism, I don't know, it's sort of wavered year to year for CU at least. Um, and another thing comes to mind. I've mentioned this book before called Range, and the premise is you should do stuff for fun until you figure out that you really love it, and then specialize in it. And a lot of players or a lot of people in any activity, so even like chess um, or any sort of sport, like kids who have been hyper focused on something tend to have a head start, but it turns out people can catch up relatively quickly once they decide they like it. There are
Yeah.
some exceptions to that, like Tiger Woods. He specialized, from 3 years old, and is probably the best golfer
And
of all time.
yeah,
Yeah. Um,
Serena and Venus Williams also
yeah.
super specialized, yeah. But
Exceptions.
agreed. Mike, Rowan, I don't know if you know this, but I think I was kind of that project player on Bird my first year, to be quite honest. Um, I'd played YCC for a couple years and I could throw okay, but I kind of feel like I was one of a couple project players on that Bird team. Mike, I don't know if that's how you guys viewed me, but I was on an O line as a freshman with 6 other fifth years, so I have a soft spot in my heart for
Hmm.
that project player thing.
yeah, that thing. Oh wow, yeah. They let you get involved and not too clicky. Something those O lines can be a little,
Yeah.
you know, themselves. They incorporate you pretty well.
Um, It
He
was
caught poles.
a tough love situation. I think I caught poles all year, um,
Yeah.
and I've talked about this before, but a lot of the guys, like a couple of the guys, were very nice to me and very helpful in the growth of my career. But a couple of them were kind of hardos and slightly mean to me, and very mean to me at other times, like telling me to get off the line in important points and stuff like that. But I'm thankful for all of them because I responded well to that type of pressure and that type of feedback just because I was like, okay, like that motivates me. That makes me want to get better. That makes me want to be the person that will never be told to get off a line or anything like
Or
that. But
tell somebody that
I
yourself.
exactly, yeah. I had both, and I think I'm thankful for both, and I think they both helped me in different ways.
Young Quinn emailed me at some point during tryouts because you were playing shame though. I mean, you were going to
Yeah,
club nationals.
yeah.
I will say I did not think of you as a project player.
Interesting.
Yeah, you and Jarvis were pretty clear cut. Like you were gonna make the team right away. And part of it was because we didn't have great athletes on the team at the
Mm.
time. Um, Rowan, I've heard you mention it a couple times. The World Games team. Could you talk about like what was your thought process on those tryouts and like what did it feel like? Because I know you weren't selected, but clearly, I don't think you would even feel boastful in saying that you feel like you can play at that level. Um, can you
Yeah,
talk about that a
I mean,
little bit?
that was the first round cut. So they have like two layers. I think they big tryout, like maybe 72, the world players from the previous cycle. And then they go from 72 to maybe like 45. And then from there, they set the team. So I didn't even make it through the first round. So obviously being cut first round is tough no matter um, like what type of player with any aspirations you are. So brutal, to be honest. Pretty only player in the men's division from DC there, so like kind of felt that let the city down. Um, and everybody was like rooting for me, I'm sure. Then yeah, just I've always tried to make the most out of every single situation, and since as soon as I got cut there, going into that year, it's like okay, this could be crazy. We could have like a World Games, like World Clubs, Nationals, AUDL, and Beach almost. So like you're thinking all these grand dreams, and then we didn't get the bid to Club Worlds. We didn't make it to semis the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Get cut from World Games. The Beach World gets postponed, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'm only playing in DC, and like that's awesome. This is a DC summer and just like hammer home the locker room and the team culture and really commit to these teams. And that worked well because both I thought obviously the Breeze had a heartbreaker to New York and Truck heartbreaker to y'all. So but at the same time it was like such a special year. So looking back on it, yeah, I got cut. I played my hardest. Like yeah, I was transitioning from kind of that no hamstring to one hamstring time. You know, had two sleeves on both hamstrings. I don't think it really slowed me down too much. Maybe in my training up to that point, but I gave it my best, and yeah, I thought I probably should have moved on, but I think everybody thinks
Yeah,
that, and
everybody was a good
yeah,
player
I'll give
there.
it a run. I'll give it a run in 3 years. I
How
try
old
my
will you
hardest,
be at that
and
time?
think I'll be 35 or 36, and every team needs a vet, and I'm a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
vet first locker room guy. So I'm already angling for that spot. I had a great time in DC and was devastated that it didn't work
Well,
out. Um,
do you think had you made that team or been on part of these other if the beach worlds didn't get canceled, do you think that would have had a negative impact potentially on DC's
yeah,
year?
mm,
I don't
speaking for
suppose you talked to
myself, yes, the mileage plan I was on, basically last season, I it's sad. Like I said, I love to play, I love to work hard, but last year I didn't, I go to practice, I'd sit out the warm up, sit out the drills, and like play in the scrimmage. Just that's what my legs could handle. And go to a tournament, sit out pool play. It's so hard. Like it's club ultimate. You want to be out there with your friends. You don't want to be like the too cool for school player. And that was all really tough, but just had the most amazing teammates. They were supportive. They gave me that free reign to know that I was like not just doing it to do it. And I think yeah, if I had to play some of the other tournaments, yeah, I don't think I would have got through with the mileage. So it was a silver lining, and uh, I'm kind of happy for it, and kept me
Yeah.
hungry and motivated. Of course, I'm using that as motivation.
Um, so you put yourself out there a lot, online, YouTube, Instagram, etc. Um, do you think that's had any impact? Like, have you noticed any impact that has had on what your peers think of you or how they interact with
Yeah,
you?
this is a great question. I have one for y'all too. At first, it's very tough because you're doing what your peers do. You're playing Club Ultimate, not for the money, just for fun. And then all of a sudden, you put out a couple YouTube videos, and there's like people that kind of want more, and they like are excited. So the two chapters, so to speak, was one of just feeling like a little bit different from my teammates and
Hmm.
like a little alienated. It is kind of weird. Like, oh yeah, got to get this video or this picture. Like you're
Yeah.
warming up for a really big game, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, Rowan's got his camera out. What turned the corner was everybody just started kind of like joking and making fun of me, and that just like broke the ice. And so then I just feel so comfortable now. It's like a thing. Everybody knows it, and ev- I think what helps is everybody accepting it, but also me like putting in the work to, yeah, I'm gonna do all these things, and like they might seem like distractions, but I'm working hard. Like when it comes to play, I'm not gonna sacrifice anything, even though I might get mic'd up during a game and put out that video. So,
But
but
eventually, like the
yeah, question.
authenticity comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I try. Like, of course, most of my posts are like highlights and good things. I try to keep it, go backwards, like posting Calvin catching it on me and showing everybody that 55% of my plays are good, 45 are bad. But online, that skews a little better for me. But that helps the brand and helps the subscriptions on
I
Excel
like it.
Ultimate. But yeah, question for y'all is, well, the summit I think does a great job online, but like why do you choose, especially the players Quinn and Kins, where do you see ultimate players branding themselves? Do you think why is there only a few out there, and like what do you think as kind of the next generation? Is it going to happen more? Or are you still like hell no? Like where are y'all feeling right now?
All right,
Go
I'll
ahead,
go
Kid.
first. Before I answer, that was a tough video that you posted when you Calvin roofing you, Rowan, because you said that you played it second best. I played it third
I
best.
freaking played that perfect. Yeah, you're in third. Oh yeah, you have no idea how well I played that. I was like, oh my, 50 yards downfield. They're not coming under. Throw this, please. And he threw it. It just got trapped in my blind spot. It's like, oh, I catch that
But that's
99
what I'm
times.
saying.
But
Discrediting the throw then. You played it really well, but sometimes the throw is just different.
yeah, I mean, it
No,
was
I'm
an
just messing
absolutely
with you.
incredible, like, yeah,
No, but
but
I don't know. I had to slip that in as soon as you mentioned that.
I want to talk more about that offline, maybe.
Yeah.
But
No,
anyway.
I did. I thought that was really funny. Obviously, that was a great video. But the whole like I guess branding thing, like we talk about this a lot because like in our last pod we were talking about Quinn's wife. Whoa.
Oh
Whoa,
yeah.
congratulations.
weird. Getting
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
used
saw
to
Thank
that.
you.
that.
Married
Quinn's
twice.
wife works for Red Bull, so it's like we were talking about like getting players sponsored. I've often dreamed about getting ultimate cleats, legitimate ultimate cleats in the game, and having like a signature cleat because that's just like when you grow up watching basketball players with their shoes. But I don't know why. Like, I think I I almost feel like that. I guess if you were gonna call him like an ultimate influencer, like it's not like a very people aren't like excited to be an ultimate influencer yet. Like you're really pioneering, doing a great job, but I don't know like if the community as a whole really gets like supportive, even like that supportive. I think a lot of the people that get into it are the younger folks. I think like older people, it's kind of like the whole thing about like the whole culture of ultimate, like we're like anti mainstream things, right? Like we don't want to grow, like Liam was talking about, we don't want to grow for the sake of growing. So like just growing, having like a bunch more followers on something, or I guess like people watching a game, like it's not like people don't get super excited about it, And I don't know what that is. Like for myself personally, like I love doing this podcast, and I've thought about potentially trying to like do more stuff on social media, um, but I always get conflicted because I generally like don't really like the effect social media has on me, and it's hard to find the balance of using it to promote myself, which I think is good for like different opportunities, but then I just get sucked into the whole world of like shit that I don't really find important to me, and that's like the struggle that I find when doing it. And I don't know where it's going to go in the future. I would love. I mean, now I just think about how the sport is going to grow a lot, and I don't know. And I don't know what it's going to look like because I don't know if ultimate like will be a mainstream like sport, because I don't know if that's what people want, which is weird.
Yeah, that's also you're I've thought about this
Yeah,
all, of course, and you're spot on with my thoughts. But the more I think about it, it's like the elite ultimate scene is kind of the
totally,
community you've been talking about, and for me, it's like people in Iran love it. They message me every day on from Iran, Singapore, Colombia. I went to Egypt this year. So those people are so excited that like that's my community. Of course, I have a community for the instructional videos, which is, North America and Canada, but I feel in my head, yeah, like I go play, Jimmy and Chris in New York, and it's like everybody knows me, but it's like they don't really know Jimmy and Chris, but Jimmy and Chris are
totally.
fucking Jimmy and Chris. And like
Mm-hmm.
that is
Mm-hmm.
weird, especially like in this community of like the elite ultimate players. But I think that's just like 0.1% of 1%, but
Yeah,
that's
and
where we
it's
all
so
live.
interesting because you're right. Like, if it did grow as and become a like much more popular and larger sport, like we would be able to share it with a lot more people across the world and like share this like beautiful game that we love to play. And then I guess the not argument, but like the flip side is that is like if we grow the sport in a lot of the ways that are suggested right now, like would it be the same beautiful game that we love playing? So that's like the kind of constant battle that goes on in my head, because I go back and forth. Like I want, as a young person growing up, like of course I wanted to get paid to play this game. Like that would be my fucking, like I still would want that, and that would be awesome. But then there are a lot of the things with like trying to be, and even how I'm talking about like I don't like a lot of things in social media. Like I don't necessarily want to do things just because there's more money involved. Like there are a lot of special things
Yeah,
in ultimate that are provided because the incentive like isn't based on money. It's based on like a lot of other things that are important to people. And so that's the kind of constant battle that's going on in my head, and I have no idea what the answer is, because I go honestly like day to day I go back and forth just thinking about it in my own head. Like I would love for it to grow, would love to bring it to all these other people, and also would want to make sure that it is still, or at least hold some of the things that are special to ultimate, which I think would also help if I could and other people could really pinpoint what those things are and put them out plainly. Like, what are these things that we would want to maintain in ultimate, and how could we grow the sport that in a way that preserves those,
Mm-hmm.
which would be hard. I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, I kind of see. Well, my outlook on frisbee is like what I think is going to happen is I do think the AUDL will kind of surpass club at some point. Um, and I think as that happens, more players will start to be more players will start to kind of be that social media influencer, and like it'll kind of grow at like a steady pace um with each other. And I second all the things Ken said. Like I would love to have like some players have their own cleats and stuff, and that's when we talk about like that's the only piece of gear that you could have that like really gives you a piece of that player. Like you can their jersey, but you're not going to play like them because of their jersey. Like you need like something that they is special to them and that they use. Um, and I do
You
think
guys should start
an
playing with
issue
gloves.
gloves. Yeah, actually, Devin said that the other day. She's like, "You guys got to get gloves," and I was like, "No." Um, but we also talked about this is interesting. This is a conversation I just had with Devin, and she's like, "But do you think like in the NFL they all thought gloves were stupid back when they weren't wearing gloves, and now everybody wears them no matter like there's no question. Like maybe that'll happen with frisbee. I don't know. Um, but something I would like to get into more of kind of posting to social media, but it's hard because I'm not good at it, and I don't know how to do it per se very well. So it's something I've been like looking into and like maybe thinking about doing. Um, and I think one big issue with the social media influencer for frisbee is that sometimes frisbee is very elitist, and like with those 1% of people you're talking about, the 0.1%, like if you're not in that percent and you're posting, I feel like some people get very judgy, and like I even find myself doing it sometimes, and it's kind of awful. But like when I see someone that like maybe isn't the top player in the game posting stuff like that, I'm just like what is this person doing? And then I like kind of snap out of it. But I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people do that, and I even hear people doing it, and it's a
Yeah.
hard field to like be okay with that judgment just like raining down on you. Um, so I think that's kind of a big barrier for a lot of people to start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, and especially if those people are, like, even teammates, like, that would I mean,
Hmm.
that does suck. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to me in the past, but like I said, I finally got to that place where it's like we're just, like, kinda joking about it and everybody knows, like, that's just me and what I do, so but yeah, starting's
Yeah.
definitely hard. Um, Johnny and Jack both, I think starting on YouTube is really beneficial because it's not so much, "Hey, look at my highlight," it's you're, like,
Instructing too.
sharing
Yeah.
something you do well or
Hmm.
you know well in like a real video. And I think that's where I would start is YouTube because there's only right now, I think 3 or 4 ultimate YouTubers.
Yeah.
You know, we shout you out and then you know, go from there. But that's where I would start. Instagram is
Cool.
pretty nasty. It's like I
Yeah.
don't like the short term stuff. And they just took away like bonuses, so you don't make
Hmm.
any more money on Instagram. So
Yeah. I think
Ron,
that's
we're
something
not making
Pavel
any money
does.
right now.
We will though. I think that's
podcast is the
something.
future. You're in the right spot.
I think that's something Pavel does super well in terms of like the Instagram. He never really posts his own highlights, which is also another thing that people make fun of all the time is when people are posting like their own highlight reels and stuff on their Instagram. Like Pavel never posts his own stuff. He's always like hyping up his teammates or something
It's
like
a great
that, which
idea.
I think is something he does super well for the social media influencer in frisbee.
Agreed.
Question maybe for all three of you, because I do think it'd be cool to watch your brands grow. Even 2021, I think I joked about being Quinn's manager. Um, but I guess what when we talk about being like building your brand, do you have a specific motivation behind it?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think one is like I have the Excel Ultimate, which is more of like a educational website
Wait,
for Ultimate, and
pop
we'll
that
even have.
sweatshirt a little bit
Oh yeah,
there.
this is my favorite. Everybody loves this one. Of
Let's
course, I wear it
go.
on the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the more authenticity I can get around, being a good player. So like training is important to my brand because it it really shouldn't, but it kind of does help to have that pedigree and background. So whether that's training or putting out good content or consistent content, I want more people to kind of be aware of myself and Excel Ultimate because I'm working with Jack Williams and we're going to drop a couple of new programs this year on how to train sport specific and some other stuff if your team doesn't have a coach, like what do you do? So we have a bunch of stuff coming out, and I think that I keep my brand high. So when I need to, pitch that out into the universe, there's people there that are like, oh, he has good stuff. I'm gonna give this a try. So
Yeah.
if I wasn't, or if I had bad stuff, then I put this out, and then I have to find a real job. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All the brand work is coming down to this year. We'll see how it did.
um, yeah, good. I'm pumped to see that actually.
Yeah,
I like watching
agreed.
all those videos. Kins, what about you? Because I know you would love to run more clinics and things like that. Do you have a motivation behind, like, if you were to try to build a brand?
I realized I'm out on clinics anyway. First of all, I kind of like Rowan,
You
kind of
are?
like Rowan was talking about, like how he had this shift. Well, not shift, but you were doing a lot of coaching other people. You realized you had a couple years left, whatever. You wanted to focus on yourself. I was like, I think I just wanted to invest too much in anything ultimate related, and then I realized while I will do this when I am older and unable to, or younger, and I hurt myself or whatever, and unable to play, but I much prefer to focus on right now, like getting better at ultimate. Like that is truly more of my passion than the clinic. So anyway, that was with that. Then with the branding thing, I mean, I think it's just like a cool opportunity if you have it, if you're someone who, could potentially like have a large platform for anything that you do. I think that's like a kind of special opportunity, and obviously a lot of good things for you personally, and then also like what Rowan is doing by like sharing a lot of, useful information to a lot of people that could get a lot out of it. I think those are unique opportunities that come to, people in that position. So I think it's cool.
What about you, Quinn?
Yeah, I think just like the growing the sport would be awesome. Like something I just like dread is when people ask me like what I'm doing at the airport or trying to explain to some of my friends that maybe don't know I play frisbee like what the hell I do for 20 to 30 hours a week every week. And I just hate it. Like I would love the sport to be just grow and get in more communities and that. So that would be the main motivation behind it. Um and there's a bunch of people out there doing it, which is awesome. And I just like to kind of maybe pile onto it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about social media in general, it does see that there's so much anxiety. I feel, even just like my personal stuff, like I don't post something like
I feel like you got to get
my
to the
personal
point where you don't
Instagram.
give a fuck about what the random
Yeah, you
people
just got
like.
to do
I
it, right?
like
And it's just
seems like a healthier. I mean, obviously you're conscious of,
um
not putting shit out there, but
Yeah,
to a certain extent, you like work hard, try to put good stuff out there, and then you don't give a fuck about
yeah.
what people think.
And now, Rowan, you've connected with people that you never would have ever expected to, right? Like what
yeah.
is more
The
meaningful to you? Is it just, does it feel like two different lives when you think about like truck stop breeze
yeah,
and like doing this trip to Egypt?
yeah. I mean, the trip to Egypt was they just DM me on Instagram, and they're like, "Can you come in 3 weeks and be like the guest of honor to this tournament?" And they ended up flying like me and my girlfriend out to Egypt. So yeah, I think it's weird because it's not fame. It's like, you're only well known in one tiny like niche community.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. You go to like Colombia and other countries internationally where they care so much because like we talked about in the U.S., you're not going to club nationals and everybody's like, let me get an autograph. It's like not happening. Then everybody's too cool for school. So, but you go on those trips and you sign 250 autographs and take 250 pictures, and it's kind of crazy. But like, I think now that it's gotten a lot bigger, it's a good timing because I said I needed that reset on the pandemic just to like be a little bit more humble and like authentic, and that's kind of really been helpful. So I think it's really cool, and I think it's really just weird sometimes. Like they like are all into it, so that keeps me going for sure. I love the international ultimate world, and I think I'll spend a lot more time there after these last couple of competitive U.S. seasons.
You think you only have a couple left?
Throwers are timeless, which is great. Hopefully we get those athletes coming into the sport, and then every team needs,
Quarterback.
some big arms, some big arms. Yeah, quarterback. So we all got the throws down, which is good. We all have time with futures ahead of us, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I love obviously disc golf was really fun when I was doing that, and there's
How good do you think you could get it? Do you think you could go pro?
I think I could be a world champion in disc golf. I think I'm very
You could
hard
take Paul
worker,
McBeth
very hard
down.
worker.
It's
Yeah,
not
I don't
Paul
know.
anymore, Mikey. It's Isaac
Is it
Robinson.
not? Oh, I'm
We
sorry.
could
I'm
turn
I'm
this into a
behind.
disc golf
Damn,
pod
really?
really quickly. I guess I've never.
Yeah, that was quick. Yeah, that was a quick turnaround on the on the
Yeah,
winner.
yeah. That I.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Well, we won't. We won't. Maybe we will turn this into a disc golf pod because that actually is interesting to me, Rowan. Because I would also consider. I know one day I will
Yeah,
transition into disc golf, committing to it for sure.
yeah, that backhand, you got
Yeah.
the
Well, so
power.
I.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I'm feeling. I can't throw it as
Yeah.
far.
But then it's like, yeah. So I've been. It's just an interesting topic, I guess, and maybe we can talk about it later because I do like.
I am
Well, to
interested
loop
though.
it in, disc golf completely changed my throwing in the last 2 years. Everything I've
In a
put
good
out
In
on
a
way.
good
YouTube
way.
since, yeah, absolutely. Everything I've been putting out on YouTube is like the disc golf crowd is so far more advanced. Nobody in Ultimate
Totally.
talks mechanics. Everybody learns how to throw from their college captain. That's like giving them outside of Mama Bird and those programs, like, hey, hold your elbow behind and snap your wrist.
Oh
The
yeah, you hate
throwing in
that.
Ultimate is so underdeveloped, and basically the last 2 years, I'm just learning all this new stuff from disc golf, putting it in my own game. I've added so much more distance and consistency on both sides, and that's my YouTube videos. My ultimate throwing is like disc golf 2.0.
Totally.
What have
So
you? Is there anything in disc golf that doesn't translate? 'Cause
Cutting.
I'm not a huge disc golfer, but well, like throwing form. Like when I think of a backhand drive, like you kind of you pull it straight through, right? Like you're
yeah,
rather than like
yeah, like
extending.
the pound for pound technique is not the same. That's why I think being a little bit more of an advanced player is helpful because I have like the experience on both. But even for like the disc golf backhand, just getting more out of your lower body and yes, there's so many small things. I changed my flick grip 18 months ago, and that's been so much
You
better.
did.
Yeah, yeah, I slid my middle finger onto the intersection of the belly of the inside and the inner rim, so it's 50-50.
Where
So
like
it's kind of like
I wish I
in
had a
that.
disc.
I'm trying to find a disc. Yeah, somehow
Yeah,
none of us have a disc.
I grabbed the
And then
disc golf
I have.
disc. It was the closest one. But
Yeah, so it's still like two fingers on each side, but the middle finger, the fingerprint, now straddles the belly and the inner rim, so it's like in that crack. So like slide your middle finger up a little bit onto the
slide my
belly.
middle
Yeah,
finger.
yeah.
Oh, here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like 50-50. And the other finger presses
Huh.
into it. If
interesting.
y'all do have some people that watch it, I'll get it for
Yeah,
you.
I think I need you to hold my.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like before I was just pushing
Hmm.
pressure laterally here.
Yeah, that's what
So
I
this is
do.
my, and now I move this middle finger 50-50. So it's 50% on this part, 50% on the belly, and then still give it some
Oh,
support.
but this one's straight.
No
Interesting.
way.
Straight-ish. It's like a little flex. You can
It
see
would
like
be.
a little
That's an interesting
mountain
question for
there.
everyone who comes on the pod. Is just how they hold a flick because it's always
How do they
different.
feel?
Well, I put out a YouTube. Oh no, it's not on YouTube yet. You haven't seen it. It's
Ooh,
only on Excel.
we'll link it though.
But I had 5 grip tests. I'll spoil it here because I mean this
Yes, Rowan
podcast,
bomb. Let's go.
break news.
Oh yeah.
One grip, split finger, the one
Hmm.
everybody learns or like starts with. My grip, the disc golf stat grip, where it's like what you were kind of showing, and then I had 2 fun ones: a 1 finger grip and a 3 finger grip. And the 3 finger grip went 80 yards and won the competition. So I'm doing a follow-up video, and also I'm doing some testing on my own because I like, hey, if I'm getting 5 extra yards, I'm gonna flip. So I'm gonna be
Yeah.
playing around with the 3 finger grip for a little
For
bit.
everything or
When
just
I'm
for
messing
Um,
around,
distance?
Wow.
I would probably do it for everything because I don't
Sure.
want to change like depending on my
Yeah.
progression.
sometimes when I throw like a high release, I'll go 3 fingers. And sometimes not, but
Uh-huh.
actually, I don't know. Quinn, you might remember this. Josh Crane.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if he threw a 3 or 4 Do you remember?
He did both. He did both. He threw with anywhere from 2 to 4,
4,
to
doesn't
be
he?
quite honest, because
So
And
what's the power thrower?
he
he
was
could throw with power, but I
he
don't
wasn't
know.
really. He would like break the mark with length and like height. He did not really throw low release or power. Like it was all like big loopy arounds, and it was all he threw with 3 and 4 consistently though. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to switch my grip like a week before the season, but I think I'll play around with it from here and there. I
Yeah.
don't know. It was also like a one throw contest, but it was a crush, 80 yards, no wind.
That's
So you're like known for having every throw in the book. Like, in fact, did you name some of these, or I know you got a lot from cricket?
Yeah, Cricket he's the OG. I pretty much peddled all his life's work and got famous on YouTube from it. But he's a great guy. He's happy for me. He's got a couple kids now. Still a great player.
He
Maybe he
is.
played
I
you guys
played.
this.
Well, I'm moving up to Grandmasters now, but I played Masters against him quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I've added maybe 5 personally that I just kind of made up here and there to the list. But
But is
most of
someone
them, like,
so you think about throwing and work on throws probably as much or more than anybody else. Like, but no, I don't think anybody really considers you as. I mean, I think we all consider you a strong thrower, but that nobody defines Rowan's game as a thrower. Do you? Do you consider yourself as like? Who do you think the best thrower in the game is?
I think it's Jimmy right now, just like based on what the power which is so bad because I joke with him after the game. I'm like, truck stop, we're trying to make possession and small ball
Yeah.
like the future. And then you go up against Jimmy and he's like single-handedly making these
Yeah.
crazy throws. So I think it's Jimmy on men's side and I think then like Nina on the women's division. But yeah, I think about throwing and I come across as thinking about throwing with all my YouTube and Instagram. But again, for the last 2 years, like I had no field training. Like even hucking and power throwing were just too invasive on my legs.
Wow.
So I would only throw, my sometimes like in the ADL or stuff. Sometimes my first throw, maybe my 10th throw is in the game. Like I throw 10 throws, but this year I've been grinding. So hopefully I'll become, Mike and Mikey's list is like, the big throwers and ultimate. Plus I'm playing defense, so I got
Dude,
the
I wanted to
kin
ask
screen.
you about that. What the hell?
Yeah, too many cooks on offense. We have everybody doing the same thing.
wow.
There's just too many. So
Isn't that the
I
definition of Truck's offense? You have everybody's a
well, I
cook.
mean, bringing Jack Williams, he kicked me off. He's going to kick me off the O line. So
Holy
that's why.
wait, what did you just say?
Yeah, the rumors are flying. Rumors are flying. You heard it, Jack
What?
Kadisi. You heard it first.
Are you
But
serious?
no, but maybe we're working hard together on
Thank
Excel, and
God.
if everything turns out all right, then
Oh
I don't
my
know.
god.
Jack will say it first. He has no idea what he's doing, but
Yeah. We ask
we've become
everybody.
great friends over the last couple of weeks, so we'll see what happens.
I almost feel I think I'd rather have him. I'm trying to decide if I'd rather have him play for you guys or for Pony, and I might rather have him play for you guys. I don't know though. I really don't know.
He could bring a layer of versatility to that offense.
It would
Or
suck. It'd suck either way, obviously.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't know how we're gonna guard either of those teams.
Yeah, Jesus.
he's fine.
Um,
But
question for all of you, sort of on the note of throwing or just like being unconventional. Are there any sort of traditional conventional things that people say that you think are antiquated? The thing that first comes to mind that I've written down is I was at the first home Alpenglow game a couple weeks ago, and a shot went up, and I heard someone say, "Oh, that's such a terrible look. It's the same third huck." But when I think about all the deep shots that I throw, like 80% of them are probably same third or more. Does anything come to mind? And how is
I
the
mean,
meta
I
changing in
was
frisbee?
it's earlier. I usually don't huck it when my player's 50 yards down the field, but it works out.
That'll be mine.
So
You need more
yeah,
power.
I mean, Kins are probably the most like creative slash shooter in this conversation. What do you think? Like, what do you think kids or anybody really should be taught when it comes to how to develop game throws?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean,
I should have given you time to think
no,
about
I mean
this.
it's so good, and I think the thing about Ultimate that makes it so hard to make these kind of statements is because it's so dependent on the wind and like what the wind is doing. That different directions and miles per hour of wind changes the types of throws and throws that are acceptable. Like we were even talking about the high release like earlier. Like yeah, I love that throw and I think it's incredibly useful, but it's only useful X% of the time. So it's so hard to make the blanket statements. But maybe maybe part of it is just that more ultimate players should go play disc golf because they'll get a better knowledge of the because I think so much of that is just an understanding of the disc and also then when you add the wind into it and understanding how you can throw the disc in different winds and really like what's going to happen to it. I just think that learning about a frisbee and what it's going to do is probably the most important thing. That's my immediate
Mhm.
answer before I could think of like something that answers the question more precisely.
I think that the same third Hux one is really good. Something that like came to mind when you said that, Mikey, was I think it was me and you talking to Bob, and it might not have been I was someone, but he was talking about how same third Hucks were going to be like the future of
He did
frisbee.
say that.
Yeah, and if you can hit them with a very high level of consistency, they're so hard to guard, like nigh impossible to guard. So maybe we're just all not good enough throwers to throw them consistently. But the other one is air bounce backhands. Like
Um,
air bounces are so useful if you can throw them well, and it's always been a thing that people like to rag on and say, "Oh, don't air bounce your backhand." But like if I'm throwing an around backhand, there's like a 90% chance I'm air bouncing that thing, and I love it. And I don't think I will go back.
every time I throw upwind, every more than 12 to 15 miles an hour, like you have to just give it that
Yeah.
little mini
Mm-hmm.
air bounce just
Yeah.
to spin it more.
Yep.
So that's great. And it's funny, like there's a YouTube video with me online saying 5 mistakes new players make, air bounce. But like, yeah, like I now I'm full circle and I totally agree with Quinn. So I think mine would be just a lot of players get good at like one stock forehand and one stock
Yeah.
backhand, where it's like every single forehand I've ever thrown is different. Touch, spin, edge, weight, all these things, and
3 fingers, 4 fingers, you just
three
never know.
fingers. Yeah, four. I haven't tried four. I need to put that in the video. It might just
Uh,
go exponentially longer. But yeah, just there's a million forehands and a million backhands. Don't just like perfect
yeah,
one where
like different
it's
and the
warming up with
footwork
one thing.
involved with it. You had this one throw, I think it was semis against Pony, where you threw like you were on like the forehand half of the field. I think you guys were in the end
Yeah,
zone vert stack, and you throw that like step through backhand to the forehand
Uh-huh.
side. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
yeah, I'm trying to make that throw famous. So I thought that was a good time, semifinals. But yeah, the
Uh-oh.
open side barbecue. Yeah, that was a little stressful. It's all seven. But you got to have them all. You
Yeah, I
never
think
know. You
that's like
never know.
the theme of the conversation is you got to have every throw is there. Obviously, some are going to come up more often, but the more throws you have, the more equipped you'll be for different situations, different wins, all that kind of stuff, different courses. You never know what kind of throw you might need.
Different
I'm gonna
courses,
keep
yeah.
trying to make this a disc golf pod because now I just like can't stop thinking about
Okay,
it.
I'll watch more. I mean,
I fucking
I,
hate disc
I got
golf,
my
dude.
I got my
How
discs over
often do
there.
you play a
I
week,
hate it. I
Rowan,
hate it.
or is it?
This year was the year I'm
Uh
like
huh.
I'm gonna do both. But now I got my legs back. I
Yeah.
feel great. I'm like, well, this is gonna be my best season ever. I haven't played in a minute, but outside in the off season, I'll play. You know, I'm more of a practicer. I'll go down in the field
Interesting.
and work in the field for 3 4 days a week.
And do you
I
really
love to
think
practice.
that you like let's say you stop playing Ultimate one day, or obviously, but one day you stop playing Ultimate, you take up disc golf fully. You think you could like get into on the pro tour? Like, how long would it take? That kind of stuff.
I could give it a run if I did my full time training. Like that's kind of my shortcut into ultimate, whereas like I just
Yeah,
hustled more than everybody. Uh, and I think I could do that if everything works out. But I'm worried about my backhand distance. Like
yeah. I mean,
they can throw it so
yeah,
far,
on
and
the
I can throw
open
like
ones, but on the some of the more wooded technical courses, maybe you'll be.
yeah, That
The
would be
one
fun
that
to
really
watch
stood out to
backhand.
me this weekend, and I'll explain. But so there was a big major championship round, whatever tournament this weekend, and the big shot that was
Mhm.
I felt was the most important at this tournament was like this. So in ultimate, I guess it would be a OI backhand, but just this like fading in disc golf.
Yeah,
It's called the Anheuser backhand. So you're throwing a backhand. Typically, when you throw a disc golf disc backhand, it wants to fade to the left, and these backhands that are fading and like gliding a long time to the right. And it was honestly like we maybe get too caught up in talking about like, oh, like ultimate player is so good at throwing a disc, and then we forget the fact that honestly the disc golfers and the ability they have at throwing a frisbee is I guess they are probably the best throwers in the world, probably better than the ultimate players. It'd be fun to have a like a disc challenge,
yeah.
maybe you create a new disc somewhere in between a a typical disc golf disc and an ultimate disc, and have some sort of challenge to see like who the best disc thrower is in the world, who can learn a new disc the quickest.
I mean, disc
Yeah.
golfers, hands down, right? They're working with
Yes.
different discs in their like every disc in their bag is a little different.
Yeah, maybe, but sometimes there's a lot of touch in ultimate.
Depends on yeah, the touch stuff, some kind of touch thing. That
Yeah,
would be our
because
only
we
chance.
we have we
Yeah.
can like that's something that I'll do. Like I have a nice touch flick in disc golf that not a lot of people have because it's not something you would try to throw a lot in disc golf, but in ultimate it's pretty useful.
You mentioned the touch thing. It seems like a lot of people who have great touch on their throws, like touch forehands, you don't see them throwing a ton of offhand stuff. Um,
Yeah.
do any of you
Yeah,
throw offhand much?
maybe just that like 45 backhandler leading them up line,
Yeah, that
just
one.
because it keeps the disc away from the defender a little bit easier. But yeah, I went through a lefty scooper phase for a bit, but now it's just knifing that flick, baby,
Yeah.
knifing
The
that
lefty
OI.
scuba phase was
Makes
just to keep
makes
up
sense.
with the new cool kids on the block who all have the lefty scuba. Like I was throwing with some kid at Bird the other day. I throw like my like 50-yard scuba, and I'm like, yeah, that's sick. He throws a 50-yard scuba back. I was like, that's dope. I throw him one back, and then he throws another 50-yard scuba, but it's lefty, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude. Like I am thinking I have like a really nice scuba, and he just threw it righty and lefty. So shout out Nada. That was pretty
Yeah.
tough.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nanda, DC guy.
humbling.
Do you
Nanda.
know
Damn.
Nanda?
No, oh, he was a heartbreaker. He was going to UVA. His brother's there, and then he got waitlisted. It was a heartbreaker. We want him at UVA.
Oh,
Oof.
he's
He's
so
Yeah,
decent.
good. He's
he's
so
a
good.
baller,
He's sick.
definitely.
He's sick.
Yeah. No, I don't really throw a lot of lefties either, unless it's really close, maybe like 5 yards. I just like to like almost like a handoff.
I could count the lefties I've thrown in game on probably one hand. Like I just don't do it. I just like my flick too much.
I had a phase. It was basically the same situation that Rowan was talking about, but if you have a touch forehand, I just feel like it's already in that grip. It's quicker. The OEO, which Rowan, I know you
Oh yeah.
love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, our whole team. Well,
Yeah,
Oh, we
basically.
know. We know.
Sometimes you're just throwing blades. I was watching.
oh, they
I
are.
don't.
That Josh will throw them as steep as
Oh
they
my
come,
gosh,
man.
Jacques.
Crazy one.
Yeah, I mean, last year. I'm going tangent now. You were going up to Johnny and Gus and Andrew a lot. But Jock, man, he's coming in hot. He's so good. He's definitely the best thrower we've played against in college, by like hands down, like not even close.
Yeah,
Yeah, what
so
do you see his
happy
trajectory
for
being?
Brad.
Do you see his
Yeah,
role changing?
no, I think just he'll continue to like take strides as more of like a leadership. Like he was like a 3-year captain on Wilson, 3-year captain on Brown. He's just like the nicest, like great team guy. So I think he'll have a bigger role on the voice of the team. Hopefully he stays in DC, but yeah, he's amazing.
Um, we have a lot of fan questions. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them, but I actually do want to ask you a little bit about the breeze, but that's not really the type of show we are. So maybe we'll see how
That's
we'll
fine.
see how
Yeah, we
far
got
we
fan
get into it.
questions. I got more fan questions than Sean, so
Yeah, he definitely got. Yeah, he definitely got more fan questions than Sean.
Before we do fan questions, I have a
No, I want to ask.
question.
This is the one I want. I want to ask about Daryl.
Oh,
Did-
Sure.
I was
um,
gonna ask about something else real quick. It'll be really quick.
okay, you go first.
So I at the AUDL All-Star game, I thought I saw you drinking a
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Pepper before the game. Did I imagine this, or is this like part of your pregame nutrition, mid-game?
Yeah, I got the story. I got the full story. So,
Sick.
it starts with quarterfinals this year against Ring of Fire, and of course we're like they've just knocked us out of a thousand. So I go Red Bull, and it's pretty rare for me. And I just was just too spicy. I was running up. If there was a call on the other side of the field, I would beat somebody that was in the play. And I'm like, oh, it was bad. And I felt a little guilty. First play, you can watch the film. I come on our play, we run all the time. I slash from A, get bumped a little bit by Liam, shove Liam off, offensive foul. Sorry. So I'm like swearing off Red Bull. So then for semis and finals, I go with a Pepsi, which is like a little more sugary, high caffeine, but not as crazy. So then I went probably Pepsi before the AUDL All Star game.
Okay.
So I don't endorse soda, nor I think it's terrible, but I think that's like where I'm at on a one game, I'm going one soda.
I mean, there's also something to be said about the sugar in there and your body legitimately needing it. Apart from like all the shitty dyes and all the stuff, but like legitimately, it's not a bad idea. I actually thought about it after you did it, but the carbonation scares me, to be honest.
Yeah, pro tip, a little shake. You want to get it a little bit flat.
Oh,
Okay,
You can
cool.
just dump
That
out 30% and shake the rest.
okay, cool. I was gonna say I just don't
he's
know
got a
how like
tip.
those are so carbonated, like in your stomach when you're playing. But I actually I like that. I'm a Red Bull man myself, obviously, but we'll see.
Yeah, I might go back to Red Bull playing defense this year.
Yeah,
I
oh,
think
you need it, dude.
Also,
yeah.
It's
you
Jump
could just.
pre-workout. Skip Red Bull and
I was
just
gonna
go to
say smelling
pre-workout.
salts, but
Yeah,
and what you can,
both.
yeah,
Saeed's
yeah, and
tactic.
you can slip one in your. Yeah, the
I'll
nice
try
thing
it
about
out.
smelling salts, you can slip one in your sock. You never know. Long turnover, timeout. You're on the field. You can rip it out, crack it open, maybe give one to your defender. They don't even know. You just
Yeah,
whip it under their nose. Now they're all freaking out. There's a lot of. They have some There's a lot of versatility
I'll put that down.
that the
I'll try
smelling
anything.
salts provide.
um, Ron, are you much of a trash talker?
Uh, Not really. Pretty focused. I get laser focused sometimes. I also try to yeah, I don't think so. I could be, but sometimes then I don't want to cross the line.
After,
I don't know.
after 2 Red Bulls, he will be. 1, he
Yeah,
just
we'll
pushes people. 2, he
see.
starts talking trash.
Well, it's funny against Bravos, like the first in the U.S. Open. I think it was Calvin again. He was guarding me on the first, or he was guarding me, and he was just grabbing me everywhere. It's like most. That's how everybody
Yeah,
plays
there's a
defense.
foul call there. I
And then
watched it.
I gave him my push off too. I gave him my push off, and then
Calvin will
he
do
called a
that,
foul.
man.
And I'm like, bro, you've been fouling me all game, like right in front of your bench. And then somebody on the sidelines like, it's Rowan's the second point. And so I was like, okay, I gotta calm down. No more talk. Get my focus back.
He does that
So
to
I
me
did
too, and I
wonder what you
fucking
were
hate it.
saying to him then.
yeah, as I said, you've been. I say the same thing every time to those handsy defenders because I shove, I push off, not to cheat, just to let them know. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. That's my most used line in Ultimate. Like these defenders want to get real physical, and then I just push them and
Yeah, no, I
they'll
love
talk
that.
something.
Calvin will give you a soft call every once in a
Yeah,
while, but we're working on it at practice. Don't worry, we're working on him. We're beating him out of him. That's funny.
yeah. So yeah, I would say neutral to pretty quiet on the field, just trying to stay focused.
hmm Um, speaking of Red Bull, though, because since Quinn's wife does work for Red Bull, we'll bring you a case next tournament.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
if
yeah.
they sponsor me, I'll drink 5 a day. That's the dream sponsor. Their content and their team. That's
Yeah. Before the next tournament, we're all at. I'll go play disc golf. Quinn and I will be plus whatever 12, while you guys are minus.
We can play best ball doubles. Split us up.
Oh
Split
yeah,
up
that'd be fun.
And you have to split a Red Bull every hole, so it's
every
I
hole.
think I would die, honestly.
yeah, we love
I
playing.
drank a Red Bull at your wedding and I started shaking a lot, and then I was wondering why I couldn't sit still and why I was twitching a lot, and then is that new kind? Is that new flavor?
Oh, the
I had the
I don't know.
strawberry
No, it's out. Yeah, it's the
something, and there
winterberry.
was the Juneberry too.
They get a little
Mm.
too sweet for me.
Yeah, they are
Yeah, they're
sweet.
sweet.
Part of the fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, Rowan, I do want to ask you about Daryl because Quinn is Daryl Stanley. Quinn has said more than once that Daryl has had a huge impact on him and his game, even in such a short time together on like the national team experience. And you've played for him for a long. I don't know how long. Can you just talk a little bit about what makes him such a special coach and such a good ultimate mind?
Yeah, he came to DC in 2018. We had a disaster in 2017, um, and he came. I'd say the first thing he did, which was incredible, was he just dealt with those egos. DC had a lot of like old legends that thought they knew everything, which is like everywhere in Club Ultimate. And Daryl was just very good at not just like talking over them, but being like, "Hey, like I'm like almost like I'm the head coach."
Mm-hmm.
But he earned that by working so hard and calling the right shots. Like if you do that and then you don't deliver, then the team is just going to turn against you, and the vets are going to turn against you. But he delivered. He worked hard, and we played so much better than our potential in 2018, pro and club. 2019, me and Daryl had a pretty big like head-to-head
Mm.
like drama-filled year. I was captaining truck stop, and I didn't really like his system, and then it was just
Wow, I
bad, and
can't
then
imagine
our
Rowan
offense wasn't
this
playing
version of Rowan.
well. Yeah, and I was like body language down, like this is terrible, and it was not a great situation. But coming back from the pandemic, we completely turned it around, and we became probably the closest like player coach in the game. And he's a genius. He reads the field, he reads his players, and he puts people in the right spot. He also puts an incredible amount of time like prepping and telling players what they need to do, who they might be guarding, how they play, and I think where I've grown in the trust, like in 2019, I was like kind of doubting him. It's just like when he says something, it's right. In the semis against New York, he was like talking about like these two little things I just had no idea about. We made those adjustments, and then like calm. So there's just like so much behind him. I think he sees the game well, but I think the way he manages his players is top notch, especially like Club Ultimate and even Pro Ultimate. It's just so hard to corral such a big group of people that come from being the best players or are have that ego or my way or the highway mentality. So yeah, I think he's the best coach in the game, and one of the reasons I'm playing defense is because I think he's going to do a little bit more work with the D, and I want to link up with him again.
So it was sort of your own choice, even to play D. Is that right?
Well, I think we all like read the writing on the wall of just like how good all of our hybrids were, and is there a necessity to have like
But aren't you
all of
like,
us?
I mean, literally the best in the game?
No, I think that's like a misconception with my like, I got the old vet baggage. I mean, objectively, Christian's already better than me. He's looking so good this year, and everybody. I think we're all like the same kind of player. I think my defense. I think my defense. How about then we have Cole and Christian? I don't even know if my defense is better than them, but I pride myself on my defense. So that's why I want to go over.
Oh yeah.
Quinn, does anything come to mind about Daryl?
I mean, I think Rowan nailed it. Just the way he is with the players is so incredible because he is like I considered him as like one of my friends as he was coaching me, but at the same time I respected him so much and he commanded that respect that
Mm-hmm.
even though we were so friendly, everybody when Daryl was talking, like Daryl's talking, we're all listening and we're all going to buy into what he's saying. So the way he balances being a friend and being a coach is so incredible. And touching on you're talking about Christian Boxley, right?
Yeah.
Box is absolutely insane.
Christian Johnson.
He was on. Well, that's why I clarified, but Box on U24, he was I played D line for that U24 team, and everybody would always ask me like, who was the hardest person to guard on that team? And I would always say it was Box, and that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and he still is like one of the hardest people to guard in the entire game. Just shout out Box, yeah.
I'll never forget having it was
Yes.
U24 tryouts, and I was like a young, I don't know, 21-year-old. It was like the first cycle that I was trying out, pre-COVID year that didn't happen. And, one of their awesome ideas was to do like 3-on-3 full field. Let's just see who's athletic. And young Kins gets matched up against Boxley 3-on-3 in the whole field. It's like,
God.
I'm like, who do I switch with? There's no one here to switch with.
Yeah.
There's no help.
Roll.
I swear it's why I didn't make the team. Obviously not really. Kind of. I'm sure I look terrible trying to guard Boxley on a fucking full field when he can do whatever the fuck he wants. It pissed me off. I mean, you're just set up for failure at that point. Like, it's just so sad. But yeah, he's athletic as fuck. So that's cool. I did think you were talking about Christian Johnson when you first started talking, and I was like, well, what the fuck? Because if he was going to be that, then like that, if he was going to be like your best hybrid, I was freaking out a little bit mentally, not ready for that.
No, he's over to the D line to help the initiators on the turn. So I don't think he's
that's cool.
So.
That's cool.
Solid player though. Christian Johnson's had a very good career.
Very solid.
Got ring.
Before I move on to the fan stuff, Quinn, I totally forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, I have one last question before we get to the fan stuff, because I think about it a lot. And obviously you do a lot of work in growing the sport, Rowan. And so I just have some questions on like, we were talking about it earlier, like what the sport would look like, when it grows. So like I've personally been thinking a lot about like, refs versus no refs, that kind of thing, third party officiating, whatnot. Like, do you think the sport could grow to a mainstream level without refs? Like, do you think a club version of the sport could ever penetrate like a mainstream sport?
That's a good question.
No, I just think the call, especially in the competitive games, like the calls just take up a little bit too much time and just the confusion of that whole and that's kind of a win for a club because like we talked about earlier, club ultimate players historically don't want to be mainstream, so it's almost good for them. So I don't think that's something that necessarily trying. I would see what I think is the AUDL and club kind of split where it's people that want to brand themselves or make it more professional or all wear the same warm ups, like choose AUDL, and I think that starts to become D1 athletes that don't have a career in their sport, and I think that the AUDL would be. Right now, there's such a big overlap with Summit and Bravo. I would imagine Breeze and Truck, but I think in the future, like it should be almost a split of like you want to like do the club ultimate, hustle with the friends, live with them in the weekend. Like that's something so special. That's why I still do it. Like I don't know which one, but I think there'll be more of a split than both ways. So no, I don't think it can go mainstream without rest.
Do you prefer AUDL or club more?
Like for the absolute love of the game, it's just hard to turn down, especially like last season. We had such a special ride and y'all had such a special ride, like just as a community base, but that's also almost everybody on that team can do that as a hobby where it's like, me and, AJ comes to mind. It's like we can't necessarily just keep paying $3,000 a year for that joy. Like, it would be nice to either get that or at least break even.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it as, yeah, it's nice, but it's not necessarily that fair that only the people that can just pay for that get it. So I kind of want to see the professional game on, whether that's PUL, WL, AUDL, kind of make a move and let people come in. So that's kind of where my energy would probably go to, but like I can't sit up here and say like Club Ultimate's not amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't mention the cost of club enough. It's expensive to play. Spicer might not play Bravo this year for that very reason. We're working on him every day.
We'll get him.
I'll get him we bring him to DC. You know, I'm sure we can get a sponsorship,
Get him
little
a
scholarship.
to collab on it.
God.
He'd make a great defensive like Excel Ultimate video partnership.
Oh yeah.
He'd be nice to have on that. Um, okay, so then my follow up question to the referee questions would be like, in an ADL version of the sport or a version of the sport that has refs, do you think anything is lost in terms of like integrity or sportsmanship? Or and also like as a part of that, like do you even think there's this much greater level of integrity and sportsmanship in like elite level club,
Mm,
or is that kind of just like hoopla that we like to talk about and potentially isn't?
Yeah, I think it's very similar overlap because the players are very
Mhm.
similar overlapped. And like in the future, maybe
Yeah,
if they split, you don't get that, but that's something that you just can't control. When something gets bigger, it's just more stuff is out of your hands. Yeah, I think they're very similar in terms of, and for the most part, it's pretty good. Like, of course, there's a few bad apples or like, games on the line. Maybe somebody, calls something just to try to get the win. But for the most part, I've been pretty happy with both. Yeah, I don't, I think for me, like what makes Ultimate special is for me at least, I want to play my best and then like I want the opponents to play their best and I just want to be better at what we're playing and that's how you win. Not
yeah,
necessarily like reading the calls or gaming the system. Like who's better today at something that we just play for so much this year and train. Like that's kind of what's special to me, and I think that can happen with refs. Like I
I
think
think
it's
so too.
hyperbolic when you say that it just takes it
yeah,
completely out of the game.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. I
Um,
just wonder, like, that's really at the forefront of this whole like growth conversation. I guess I really find it interesting, but I'd love to hear the different perspectives. Go on, Mikey. What are you gonna say?
what do you think a lot of the apprehension is for some top players to want to play pro style ultimate?
Yeah, the love for the club and like the sport is there. They're financially secure where they're fine about that, and you know, maybe it's a mileage thing, maybe it's an age thing, and yeah,
Yeah,
maybe it's a you know a you know I don't know, maybe they're just anti changing the sport. There's a lot of like
there are
old
a
school
lot of
purists,
reasons.
and
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah.
So, but
I was talking to Trent Dillon last week, a little bit, and he has, I think he kind of leans to the not just the traditional piece, but the capitalistic nature of the AUDL. I'd love to talk to him more about it. I didn't get all the details, but I kind of when you were what resonated with me, what you were saying, Rowan, is I want to be the best at what I'm doing currently, and it maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I guess I'm not trying to save the world with frisbee, at least. Like I would like to make a positive impact in some way on society,
Yeah.
but I think there are just other ways for me to do that. Um, you also said you think that there should be a delineation, like when you said D1 players potentially coming into AUDL. Like, do you foresee that happening, or you think that's like the best path forward? What
yeah,
could?
I think if like I owned a team, or obviously I really want to win the championship. I work closely with our owner, and he's like a mentor to me. So I'm really vested in the Breeze. It's like so. Hey, I'll take all the truck stop players I can get. Like they're my great friends. They're the best players in the city. Vault went to nationals too. We have a lot of Vault players. But at least I think if it continues with that overlap, it's just the numbers are going to grow what like 5% every year. Like I think something major needs to change if the sport is like going to adapt or take it to the next level. At least some in my day. So I'm a little bit more on let's see what happens when we really switch things up
Yeah,
mentality. But yeah, I don't think that'll happen like in 2 years or 3 years. But I don't know why people in the ABL aren't like
pushing for that.
emailing emailing the football coach at D2 school outside of Boulder, Denver, be like, hey, do you have any wide receivers that
Yeah.
their athletic career is over? Like, come play. I think they would
Sal.
you talk
Maybe we
about
should be
it.
thinking about that. Actually, there was a semi-pro football player that
Yeah.
emailed us. I'm forgetting his name. He ended up not coming out to tryouts, but we were certainly intrigued at that possibility.
Yeah, that's funny.
Um, I kind of wonder, like, we could also we've talked about like different levels of the sport in general, and how if you're not, quote unquote elite, that you get less exposure nationally. Like, you don't get to go to nationals, and that kind of sucks. And Quinn and I, we always talk about pickleball on the podcast now. Um, there are like different tiers. You can go to nationals at like the 4.0 level. Actually, I could be misquoting the actual levels, and then like the 4.5, and then you go to 5.0 or whatever in pro. But it would be kind of sick if, you know, if it wasn't just like, if you could, your team could just have a different rating, and you could still go to a big tournament and sort of experience the same kind of feelings and competition. Um, you guys ready for fan questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh shoot, I gotta open it. I screenshotted these things, but
You
I
can't zoom in on
did
them.
not. Well, I pasted the same screenshot twice. It looks
All right,
like.
what about
But
this,
this one I
Rowan? What
opened.
about a youth academy league starting soon for the ADL? What would your thoughts be on that? Kind of like in soccer, like get more people in,
Yeah,
get it
I
more
guess,
mainstream, have it be like a youth, an ADL youth league, basically, like a youth academy league.
yeah. If the kids are fully taken care of financially, that's a great way to bring more people into the sport, especially not like the private school kids that
Ooh, and
play
I just thought of the
ultimately.
DC
So
name. They
I
could be the Gusts.
That's what
Did
I
you
was gonna
say?
say.
Did
I
you
was
think of
just gonna
that?
say that. I was thinking
S-
that, and then I
s-
was gonna say the summit could be the hills or the
a little,
Yeah, like the
Hills.
plateau or something, something that like you get close to up there, but it's not quite at the top.
yeah, the ultimate for youth players is great, and yeah, that accessibility is great because it's not there
Yeah,
right
that was
now.
my go on,
So,
Mikey.
I was just gonna say, so many people who are anti AEDL always talk about how it's bad for youth, and I just completely disagree. And I think it just brings interest, and more youth are playing because of it. And Rowan, like somebody like you, Rowan, who's been in the MLU and ADL for forever now, like who's given back? Who's given more back to youth than Rowan at this point?
Rowan is
Like,
for the kids,
Hell yeah.
yeah,
They're out there, hell yeah, the kids and the international, it's both.
but I
But
feel like the worst part about it for the youth is that it fractures the like almost like the youth community, like they want to like ADL and those kind of things want to do youth, but since they can't agree on how to do it with like USA Ultimate and those types of nonprofits, like it splits it
it
up, like it
sucks.
would be good if ideally you could like combine those two things. It would be good for the youth, which was why my drunk idea at
Yeah,
Quinn's wedding was to have the youth academy be a joint venture between the ADL and USA Ultimate, where USA Ultimate operates most of it, but it's branded and stuff by the ADL.
yeah, the teams built up by
Uh-huh.
their local teams.
But then you would just have to
That's
get
not
them
bad.
to be on the same page about officials and
something.
No officials for youth. I think let the kids play by
but
themselves. I
how
think,
old
and
do you think that is? Like if so because we were talking about like competitive games, right? So let's say it's like the youth, it's like high school aged kids. So it's like YCC's level, national competition, finals. Do you have refs in that? Or do the youth still try to figure it out on their own?
yeah, that's probably the line if you're in Vegas, like varsity high school is some people are taking the over under on that one. I think
It's tough. I don't know. You don't have to know.
yeah, let them learn how to talk it out then. And they might not be great at it, but I think you still get better at things when
And
you're
that's
not
cheaper
good.
as well,
So
especially as
I,
the sport is first growing. You don't have to get referees and stuff. So I like that answer. I
so
think that's a good perspective. And I think like I think this is more realistic as the years go by, because as younger and younger people are in positions of making decisions at like all these kind of organizations, then it'll probably be easier for these types of things to happen, because a lot of people can get somewhat stuck in their ways of how they view the sport and life and whatever and how it should be and how things shouldn't change. But, change is a constant and probably good. And circumstances change always and forever. So,
Yeah, I'm really undecided on what because we always argue for self officiation as being such a good tool for kids, for conflict resolution and everything. Um, I don't know. I guess I would just that makes sense to me, but it would be nice to have a little data around that to support it.
yeah, like put them on a debate team and see which ones are like actually successful or like they just like yelling contest and in their debate like high school. I could contest, send it back. I don't like your argument. Send,
Let's redo it.
send, yeah.
Redo
Anyway, all right,
it.
enough growth. Go to the
Okay.
fan. What do the fans want to hear?
All right. Let's pick out a few. I'll start with Callahan 236. 236
That's got to
asks,
be John Randolph.
who is the best?
No, I'm joking.
Who is the best player in Ultimate and why is it Jack?
Yeah, definitely an enticing pick. Who's the best player in Ultimate? Yeah, well, I'd say it's his to lose this year, coming off the World Games gold, and just I think he's in his prime. But I'm definitely I think there's a lot of people trying to chase him down. I think
Yeah, I can't believe they
yeah.
asked that to the
So
Alti
I will.
Worlds Player of the Year. I mean, that kind of.
The
Oh yeah, no,
disrespect.
Where
I
was
think
Jack in the quarterfinals? Where was
so.
where was that
Jack was
best
like
player?
still trying to play and still playing pretty good, even though he had like a bad concussion from the game before, so he probably shouldn't have been playing.
Jack did?
Um,
Oh, really?
Hmm.
undiagnosed, but you can see on the tape he hit his head pretty hard. But he played well against us. Their offense just I don't know what happened
They
today.
had a lot.
Michael
Yeah.
Jordan would never be
That's
affected by
all.
a concussion.
But no, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, we'll give it to Jack.
Where
The
can you give
point,
us your
final
top
point.
5?
Ooh, 5.
Yeah, I'll break down the final point quickly. We're
Okay.
playing the Empire in the showcase game at TEP, and like I've been guarding a few players, and then it's game point, and I'm like, all right, game point. I got Jack this point, and then I'm like, I'm gonna blow him up here. He probably doesn't have people like on him. So it was a split stack play. He comes from the front of the three,
Mm-hmm.
2 steps on the open side. I'm like,
And then he
I
goes
got
deep.
him. It was a jab step, and I fly past him, and he just torches me deep and like burns me on game point. So
Dude,
that's how that game ended. But I'll
I
be
know
back.
that
I'll
play
use it as much.
well.
And that wouldn't have happened if you were
So
injured, Rowan. You would have been like, "Nah, I'm not gonna."
that would have been
Yeah, or
a
you
10 yard.
wouldn't have even taken the matchup to begin with.
Yeah, if Jack can have a 5 yard slash,
Right.
like what's he gonna do? On the side too.
Ring definitely runs a similar set. Kins and Quinn, I might have even sent a clip to you guys from Worlds. It was a Slack thread with Nut and TK as well because they run the exact same set. The Huck does not go up to Jack though. But what I love about that, and actually I love a way you guys running a lot of your split stack sets with Truck. There's just like so many counters and just options and reads off of it. He ends up going deep and takes an extra defender, and like I think Davis gets like a fill on the far rail on the 2 side. Um, I I would love maybe this is Kins. We've been talking about this for weeks that we would do a film breakdown of some of these things
Yeah.
because without the visuals it's tough. But this I fucking love nerding out
YouTube,
about
there
some
it
of
is.
this
Watch
stuff.
the YouTube channel.
Oh, I need to ask you later
Right back.
how do you annotate stuff and well we don't need to talk about that on the pod though. All right. Let's see. This is from IDJ Whitman. We've sort of talked about this. He says, thinking back to 2016 through 2021 Truck Stops national appearances, what is the difference between those teams and last year's team that allowed for 2022 Truck to push to the next level? And actually, I want the 3 of us to answer this question too, because I'm curious about perspectives. But Rowan, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll start first. I think team culture was the first thing in mind. Like Johnny brought the offense, but Johnny also brought this like really fun, goofy team culture. Everybody bought in. There was no egos. Like we're all really selfless. We're all doing what we needed to, training hard off the field. And I think a lot of that stuff had happened in the past, but there was not like this cohesive, calm, goofy culture. Be like before we get to quarterfinals and we'd be like, oh shit, like I hope we win this one. We've lost the last five. Uh, so I credit the team culture, and I think that's incredibly undervalued. Uh,
Totally.
it's a little variance too because we've lost, I think, a couple like universe close games in that stretch. So there's always some variance, but
Mm-hmm.
my answer is team culture and love our culture.
That's a good one. Um,
I'm gonna
Ken's
sound like a broken record,
yeah.
but it's like it's the same answer pretty much. I
Are you talking
pretty much
about
took the words
for
right.
Bravo or
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Chuck?
for Bravo, for
Yeah,
versus Truck. Like that's what we did too. It was just we decided that having fun and having a great culture and trusting your teammates and all this shit like contributes to winning more than we realize, and we kind of embraced that pretty late in the season. Honestly, it was like after regionals, and we just were like, look, having a great culture and having fun is gonna push us to the next level. So let's do this, and we did it, and it all came together, and super undervalued, like you said, and it's should be on the forefront of the beginning of the season, the
It's
middle of the
like
season,
number
and the
one
end of the
thing.
season.
And
Yeah.
also,
Yeah,
both of the teams were able
100%.
to seamlessly incorporate a lot of young talent while mixing it with the
Hmm.
veteran talent. And I think a lot of teams find that difficult because of like the egos that you were mentioning and stuff. Like there was no lack of talent
Mm-hmm.
from in both age groups on both those teams, and I think being
It's a
able
good
to
one.
combine that and utilize all of it, is key.
Yeah.
yeah, and that happened on Bravo too. But I feel like this year the vets on truck stop, we turned over three old captains into like three middle-aged captains, but more so like the younger players like Jacques and Johnny and their voice like was heard instead of just the old people just droning on and talking over them. Like you're like listening to those younger players a little bit more than we
Totally.
have in the past. Do y'all like kind of give those young players like some voice as well?
I think so. I just turned 25, and I captained last year, and that's definitely like a goal of mine to at becoming a captain with Lotus. My goal when becoming a captain was to integrate all of the Lotus guys that we could, and make them feel like part of the team. And I think we did it well. And listening to you talk about the growth of Truck over the years is so crazy, because it's like almost identical to like how I saw Bravo. Like when we struggled, and pre-COVID, and then even after COVID, it was like all of the older people just having an ego, and thinking that their way was the best, and they're not going to do it another way. And this past year, over the last 2 years, I would say it's been more of like, let's buy in, let's give everybody a voice, and let's give each other feedback and buy in on what we're trying to do, which was that's awesome.
Ken's, you
No, I
anything to
just
add
think
to
a lot
that?
about sockeye because they're old and they don't do that.
They were very
Like,
divided.
they join us with the team
Yeah,
culture.
but that's
That's
also I
good.
was thinking maybe they're now going to start going on the same path, similar path, or they explode even more. There's
As
only
the
two
youth takes
directions they
over.
could go, up or down. We'll see. No, but I do, especially I think of it in Seattle because they have so many youth that I feel like weren't necessarily used that much, even like
Hmm.
last year. And you know, I've also been on teams where like in Philly, like I think that was a big problem was like not trust like a lot of good. There was like a
Yeah,
lot of good youth players in the Philly area that weren't like playing or like doing a lot on those teams that probably just a lot of it is because but like I also get it, like even being an older guy in college, like when the young guys come in, you're like these fucking little shits. Like I don't like this
These
little
idiots.
cocky motherfucker. Like I don't want to let them play. You got to earn it. Like back in my day, like we didn't. But the best approach is to be like, welcome, young Padawans.
Yeah, give them the center, give them the first cut, just like from day one,
Yeah.
just to let them know. Because then they respond to y'all better too. It's like a
Totally.
two-way street. You can't have the young guys coming in like clicky. We're way better than this old generation. So I think like going both ways is important.
I really feel like that's why people like Maddie Jackson and Ben Laurie so much. They've said this out loud a lot that they want to embrace the young players, and even this year, Maddie has mentioned that he thinks he still has a lot to give to the game, but he also understands that there's a lot of young talent around Colorado. You know, with Calvin and Danny and all those guys. In some ways, it makes more sense to empower them. And yeah, like that culture piece. It's really only the only thing that teams should think about. And kids, you're talking about sake, and this is another thing that Trent was telling me about last week. He was saying, after they won in 2019, they're rightfully so riding high, and definitely wanted to run it back with that group. And then COVID hit, and I think that like the opposite thing happened with them because maybe it's because the only way they could go was down at that point, and the only way we could go was up. Um, like another year of aging, whatever, and it was harder to integrate youth, and people like sort of moved away. Dylan was playing remote. I don't know if he was remote in 2019, but the fact that like trying to keep the band together can be tough, especially like as culture shifts and I think they really wanted that chance together in 2020 that they do. They didn't really have a good opportunity to defend their title.
And it's so hard in club because it's like your friends. Like we talk about that too. Like you have to like cut people who are like your friends who you played with, especially if you're on the older side of the team. You probably played with these people for a long time, and you kind of ideally, I think the best situation is you have people like Maddie who are like thinking about it and they're like, well, maybe I don't need to play or like whatever. And the worst situation is you have to like let them back on the team or maybe even cut them, and that's just tough because those are your teammates, your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie sent me a text. I think it was the beginning of the club season. He's like, when I get too old and I'm bad, you just got to tell me. You just cut me, dude. Just tell me. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
I made that
perfect.
promise to Maddie at the ADL championship weekend. I was like, Maddie, I promise, like, when you are too old, I will tell you.
No.
I will be the first to tell you. I promise.
He's not there yet.
Nah, he's not.
No, absolutely
not. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to the one from the story. This this is. I think this is a pun. I hope this isn't. I'm not saying this wrong. I think it's Chick-fil-Asian. Must be an Asian guy that loves Chick-fil-A, which could be me, honestly. Asks. He says, ask him about the catch against Bo Kittredge, please.
Yeah, I think this is a coach in kind of our region, Ian. So I think he's asking, like there was a catch a couple years back where I caught it like and got hit by Bo in the corner of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think Ian was saying that was the start of the downfall for Bo. But I don't know. I think that, I don't think I would take too much credit for that. I think it's just a good play and great film study where he is probably faster than me, but I took the inside and then was able to slow him down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I remember from the play was it's a good box out.
Let me ask you about another catch, the famous one where you total
Yeah, I
where
just
you're
thought
out
of
of
that.
bounds, come back in.
Yeah,
Is that a
I think
legal catch?
I think that plays just in ultimates. Like I got pushed maybe 6 inches horizontally by Conrad, and like I was out by maybe if I don't get that little horizontal shift, I think I'm back in before that. So it's one of those things where legally I'm OB because a fraction of a second
Like your
I
hands
caught this
touch the
before I
dude's.
reestablished. But I think like with that slight contact, it all evens out. And
I also
I
think
think
a play like that, you just have to. It's so sweet. You just have to reward it.
Yeah, I agreed. And like not with the refs, no ref thing, but the observer was right there and instantly like called it in. So like that was just another mainstream like bump because non-ultimate players could see like all of a sudden like it was a touchdown. So it's just like those small things where like if you look at it, like it just makes it look easier to digest for the non-ultimate mind. So yeah, that's fun. Yeah, Conrad's the defender.
We have a couple people asking about cleats. So Tyler Vandergriff and Alex Vu both ask best cleats for Ultimate, which I think Kins and Quinn might also have opinions on.
Yeah, well, Ken's waiting for his deal. So I have gone in and out of many cleats. So Addy Zeros were a little bit too harsh on my feet. They are fast, but they're just like I'm big into foot health. Then last year I started with these like $15. No, yeah, I did start with like the $15 Mercurials that I've never
Mercurial,
worn before.
yeah.
Somebody got them to me. They lasted like 2 games, dead. I don't know, they lasted for quite a bit. And then right before the series, they blew out, and I was looking around for cleats. I had worn those Gospels, the black and white, the Warriors, for a couple years, the ones that they blow out every like 2 weeks, but I had like 5 pairs. But all of them in DC were gone except Daryl's, who wasn't playing a lot. Daryl had gotten a
No
pair,
way.
the exact same size I needed. So right before
Coach
Nationals,
coming through.
I threw Daryl $10 or something, and got his Warriors, and they've lasted me till like last week. And now I found like New Balance lacrosse cleats. 'Cause I would err on the side of foot health. If the Addy Zeros like feel good, go for it. They are pretty fast, but you don't want anything too soft. I've done the Tokays for a little bit. I was like one of their ambassadors. Um, but I think just like the UP cleats, they just ended up being a little bit too soft, and you want some kind of speed,
Yeah.
Are
change of
you
direction.
are you rocking like the freeze right now or
Yeah, I'm trying those out. And worn them for just a week, and I
Mhm.
like them. Yeah,
I'm
so
I got a pair of those and I like them, but they're too soft, like you were saying. They
yeah,
feel like a running shoe, so I kind of feel like it's a myth that like you're getting not a myth entirely, but I don't know if we're generating enough force to make the carbon foot plate like actually return enough force to make it worth it. But
yeah.
they feel too soft, and now I'm back to Nike Vapor football cleats, just like the Speed
Okay.
football cleat is, and that's probably what I'll use until my feet are
You
dead.
use toe spreaders, Ron? You t-
Oh,
I got into
Dude, I
them a
got them
little
on
bit
right
for a year
now.
no
with
way.
Russell Wallach.
Yeah.
Russell Wallach got me on them, and I think when I had some like foot problems, but when my feet feel healthy and stuff, then I just let it ride. So I haven't worn them in a few years. I've had the hamstrings, but my feet have been great.
Do you
So
have bunions at all? Weird question.
I think so. No, no, I don't.
No. Okay. Yeah.
No.
Quinn and I got the little guy bunions, the Taylors.
Yeah.
What do they call them?
Awful.
Sure.
Bunionettes.
Cleats, yeah,
Bunionettes. Yeah.
cleats.
That's cute.
Yeah.
You guys can bond over that.
Yeah. I know, right?
Kins, what about you? I know you love the Audi
Yeah, I'm the
Zeros.
prime knit Addy Zeros. Has to be. I stock up whenever I can.
Okay.
I love them.
Until we get the Audi Chilkins.
Chilkins, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Chilkins, Zenkins, or something like that. We'll work on the name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why maybe I shouldn't
Uh,
endorse like any brand of cleats. I should stay open.
Absolutely not. You should take the logo off them too. You don't need
Yeah,
to
well, and
advertise it.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I
Free
wanna be able
club.
to like pick whoever. Like if it's some random cleat company coming for the sponsorship, I want to be open.
You're acting like you're gonna have 5 different companies asking you to pick
No,
a
just
cleat
like
with
what
their
if it's
name
not
on
an Addy company? I need to be ready. I can't have like already claimed Addy Zeros
well,
as
we
the
know
best.
we need to see the new Matt Damon movie. Well, I forget what it's called, Air, maybe about
Air.
Jordans.
Yeah, Air.
Yeah, he was an Adidas guy and then signed with Nike, gave him a better pitch. Oh, actually, the hamstring thing. I wanted to ask you, what are you doing in rehab? What have you done in rehab? Because we actually
Well, I
talk
think
about
that's why
hamstrings a lot.
it set me back a while because it happened in like the last drill of the World WUGC tryouts, and that was like right before, that was early 2020. So I had this bad hamstring. I'm still like okay, and then pandemic starts, and then I'm like, why isn't this going away? Then I did like some crazy workouts. I was back in the days where it's like, I'm just gonna work through this. And then then the other one, I was on a track. I love 400s, my favorite. Just like
I die.
I love 400 because my favorite athlete's a 400 runner.
Who's
But
that?
Who is
they're
he?
not. I wouldn't say Wade Van Niekerk from
Okay.
South Africa is the world record holder.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't say they're so replicable for ultimate. It's good for the heart. But I was on like 300 of the 400, and then the other one like really went. So I have like one mini bad hamstring, one really bad hamstring, and then I'm just like, we're smack dead in the pandemic. I'm like, well, we got time, and I just sat on them, and that's like the worst thing you can do for hamstring injuries. You should have been like moving, just like walking, like running, even where there's no pain. So I just sat on it for like 6 months, really bad, came back. Then the other one re-aggravated. And yeah, how I've kind of gotten better is just consistently day by day training, whether that's a little bit
Yeah.
of lifting, rushing, and everything. You just got to move it. You can't hide from it. You can't just like rest it away. You got to actively um, and aggressively move it,
So
in
we
my opinion.
have a couple of guys on CU who have had chronic hamstring issues. Actually, Ian Toner, who's lives in Denver, and Nick Perifico. I was just with them yesterday. They've also had years long hamstring issues, and has basically is why they don't play frisbee anymore, because they couldn't get healthy. Quinn and I are also huge fans of Nordic curls. If you've ever done those or seen those, I
Yeah,
don't know that you can do those injured though. You kind of have to be healthy.
it's funny. Well, yeah, well, we have our there's a frisbee player, Pete MacArthur in DC, who's also he's like he's the man. He's so cool, but he's also the like Redskins like orthopedic like doctor. And, like he works with like and the Nationals, the pro MLB team, so he knows this stuff. And he's like, yeah, like in Europe and all the teams with like billions of dollars and they're studying this stuff, they're like hammering Nordics for their athletes. So, but like 6 weeks ago, we were doing our Breeze preseason more training at this gym, and they're like Nordic curls. And then when the instructor wasn't watching, I like fall down to the ground because I just didn't want to risk it. So
It's
I
I
wanted
would
to
not,
hide.
if I were
Every
you, I
time
would
he
not
was
do them.
watching,
Yeah.
yeah, no, every time he was watching, like I would give it like 1 degree down and then just like fall, but try to make it look slow. So it was like it was a controlled fall. Yeah, I was like, I'm not messing with this stuff. Like I know it's the right thing to do, but I'm just like so paranoid. I finally got healthy. I'm gonna build it up slow, and yeah, one day I want to be able to do Nordics, but I'm the 10% kind of no matter what you do, you can't just like double your output, whether
Yeah.
that's track, weight room, Nordics. Like slowly and consistently is the name of the game.
Yeah. To make you more paranoid, I guess I think I pulled my hamstring a while ago because I was just hitting the Nordics way too hard. Like I was doing them once, twice a week mid season, and
I do them
I was
three
just so
times a week.
fatigued. And well, yeah, Jesus Christ.
I also
I,
don't
and
play
I,
frisbee anymore,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. I would, if I were you, I would try and run the off season, but I generally don't even really do them during the season now because it just fatigues my hamstrings so much,
Yeah,
and it feels like at practice sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's close. But I've even modified them now. In the recent months, I'm only doing the bottom. It's not even necessarily like the full bottom, but it's probably 10 degrees from parallel with the bench, and then it's probably like maybe another 30 degrees, and that's the only range of motion I'm doing, specifically because that top range you're not really in when you're doing playing sports. Like you're not in that top range, your knees never flex that much.
sure.
So I'm trying to get really, really strong in that range of like 10 to 30 to 45 degrees of like flexion. So you could also give that a whirl
Yeah,
if you wanted.
I there's the one that you lay on the bench and like you curl it with your hamstring. So
Hmm.
it's like the
Yeah, yeah,
old school machine.
sure.
yeah.
So I'll put
Yeah.
like 20 on that and maybe do what you're talking about. Maybe nice though, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'll introduce that idea.
I I want to keep hammering the training stuff actually, because we haven't talked about it in a few episodes. What is your regimen like? Have you ever done like a GPP, or are you doing your own thing? Um, like how heavy do you lift?
It's been mostly intuitive. Like 5 years ago, I was like thought lifting heavy was cool. Like most people do early. I could like get some like pretty good numbers, but now my like greatest fear is like no injuries in the weight room. Like it's just so stupid to even risk
Yeah.
that, whether that's like catching a clean with your wrist if you're not ready, and or like overdoing it. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty lightweight, pretty consistent, and just like a little outside the box. Like with my like last year, I couldn't breathe well. I've never breathed well, so I went to a pool.
Yeah, the
I'm like,
holistic.
I'm gonna try to hold my breath underwater for 3 laps. I got started at like half a lap, worked my way up to like almost two, and then almost like blacked out in the pool. And then I'm on YouTube, and it says I'm like trying to get 3 laps. So I'm trying to research how do I do it further. And then it's like rule one: have somebody with you when you do this. Because if you black out in the pool, you're
You
done.
just die.
So it's
Oh
like
my
ever since then I stopped doing that training,
god.
and now I like sometimes might hold my breath and do like a little jog just to get that pain of not breathing, but don't do it in the pool.
What
And it's like stuff like that, like outside the box. Like me and Tyler running some hill sprints before running with water in your mouth was famous, and we just like mixed up some rum, tequila, and vodka and hold it in our mouth so we can like, breathe through our mouth and run up these hills. And
Oh
just like mental toughness training is I'm big with that. And
wow.
God.
I got some other secrets that I can't share because I don't want my competition doing these things.
Um,
So
but so you mentioned 400s. What do you think is like a proper distance?
yeah, I like lateral stuff, even though like those shuttles are hard to run. I think if you're on the track, I don't think it's yeah, I think like 200 is pretty solid. Um, yeah, and it's positional. Like you know, Kins isn't running the same like workouts as like necessarily even Quinn like back in the backfield. So I think it ultimate shouldn't necessarily be like
One
a
size
box
fits
where
all.
yeah, but at the same time you need to practice what you're gonna do. So you know when I was good at middle distance, I was able to outrun everybody on the points. And I don't know, what do you guys do on track or field days for you
Um,
two, Quinn and Alex?
yeah, Quinn, you go. What do you got?
I'm I'm always focused on speed more so than distance. I'm even considering like 200s distance. Like I'm
Yeah,
doing maybe like somewhere between 40 and 70 yards, sometimes on like a slight incline, sometimes flat, and I'm going 80 to 100% on them, and I'm resting a lot. I generally don't do a ton of cardiovascular stuff just because I think I get that during practice, and I've never had an issue with it at tournaments and stuff. So I'm really focusing on running really hard for a short distance and then resting a lot, so I'm 100% for the next rep as well.
I've always been big on the short change of direction stuff because that was, as someone who's gotten taller, that was a big hole. So I like even my dad always had me doing like little changes of direction, that kind of stuff. And then more recently, I really like to try to think of different footwork things that I'll be doing in a game and just trying to hammer them out and be efficient with the footwork so that, if I'm either making a cut and or trying to defend a cut, both in the handler set and the downfield, that it's just, routine, certain types of foot.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff to be done
exactly. And
before.
you can like also build the strength. Like if you're focused on trying to, make those moves explosive, then you can, it just helps. So I really like to, because I'm a big believer, like you said, like you should be doing a good amount of your training should be doing what you're doing in a game, So like trying to think of movements like making an undercut, defending an undercut, that kind of stuff. Uh, and then just repping those out for a little bit.
Yeah, rest and rep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, that's something I've even been experimenting with is just like going out into a field by myself and imagining a field and then imagining situations that I'm in games. So like if I'm initiating, like kind of drifting out in the middle and then punching and going a certain way, or being the one and punching and going a certain way, and just like doing those really hard. And you look like an idiot in the middle of the field, but it's actually super useful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I've done those, and
Oh yeah.
I think you're listening and you're like trying to play like that's the stuff you should do.
Oh
I
yeah.
think the
In
track is
my
more for fun.
in
Yeah.
my older years, having played Masters and Grandmasters now, both Johnny Walker and wait, what teams are what are they called again? Encore, Johnny Encore, and now
Encore.
Walker. Um, the last few years we've gotten GPP, and I'm a little undecided on it because I would say like I'm an advanced lifter, and I think it's more for beginners. And the conditioning piece, I love it for health, but I don't know if it's applicable to frisbee. Like there's like a lot of tempos. I think there's 5x5 tempos where you're running like 160 yards, and it's all like heart rate based, which is interesting. Like you rest till you're at 140 beats per minute, and then you go again, and you're not supposed to hit max um, heart rate or max effort. And I love it. Like I feel great, and I feel like it helps me like my longevity and health. But I'm never like, this is making me a better frisbee player. I really don't know. And then there's this other workout which makes basically zero sense to me, where they have you do 4-minute shuttles at 100% effort, which is literally impossible. I don't even know what the purpose of it is.
Well, maybe it just means 100%. Like you're like, do they
Blink
really mean
dry.
like sprinting 100%, or maybe they just mean you're just
Yeah,
trying
they
your
will.
best
They
in
have
the.
well, sometimes they specify it like do 4 minutes and keep your heart rate under 160. And then sometimes it's all out 100% effort, which basically means you can run for 15 seconds maybe, and then you're walking the rest of it. I don't get it.
We got to get Goose on to talk about it.
Yeah, I did message Goose. He might, depending how his
Oh yeah.
surgery goes tomorrow. So good luck, Goose. So we're all
Yep.
hoping you have a strong recovery. Okay, maybe one or two more fan questions, and Rowan, if you got anything you want to talk about, we can. These guys actually have to get to a Bravo Mountain Bird scrimmage here in an hour.
Let's go.
But let's see. Let's pick a good one. You
What's the
guys,
over-under for that score?
what'd you say?
If y'all both have full strength, what's the over/under on the game
Yeah,
to
that's a good
15?
question. If
It's like
both teams were
Maryland.
full strength,
Yeah,
Quinn, what do you think?
5.5.
Like, well, the issue is they have like 4 of our starters. So do we
No,
get
no.
them, or
Bird
do they
gets
get
the.
them, or do we both get them?
They play Colorado.
If we're full strength, I think it's 6.5. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
Bravo wins.
Right,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
like
yeah, if
full
we're
strength, even like maybe it's tough because it's funny because Bravo's always like out of season and Bird's like ramping up for their nationals because last spring, when I was playing Bird, we did whoop Bravo's ass twice in these games leading up to nationals, which was what, Quinn? What was that? What was
But
that for?
not full strength, right? Yeah.
I think they were both like 3-point games, and we had no
So
one
many
and
excuses for a club team.
didn't
So,
run
the amount of
lines, and
excuses for an elite club team losing to a college team is hilarious. But
how'd you guys do at nationals? Did you make finals?
um,
Oh yeah, okay,
just
cool.
it's just different levels of the sport, I guess. I don't know,
I guess so.
but
Rowan, do you ever scrimmage local college teams?
Yeah, the Breeze did Maryland,
Mm.
but they're not as strong as they've been in years past. We have 2 of their players, but yeah, it was like 15-2.
Oh,
Oof.
ouch. Kids, did I cut you off?
no,
Say one more thing.
no. Quinn just coming at his old college team, I think did that. I'd be mad too, though.
All right, everybody. I want to pick a good one here. Well,
I got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yuri Podnikov, 14. just like your favorite moment playing frisbee.
That's a good one.
Yeah, favorite moment frisbee. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think probably this past year, I think um, yeah, I think just had a great vibe at nationals throughout, and like just there's a couple car rides that were sick. Where it's like I think it was me, Tyler, Johnny, and Aaron Bartlett in the car, and we're just like feeling good all week, and yeah, just like to and from the fields are like really that's like a special moment
Mhm.
for me. I think that's one of like the small things I like about the club tournaments. In terms of like on the field, of course that New York game was pretty insane. Just like what happened to Grant early,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had played in one semis, but I was like new to the team in 2017, didn't really know what was going on. Um, but like that was like the first time I like knew what semifinals was, and it was kind of like the evening game, not the night game, but that was really good, and it was just like a crazy game, and we just survived and kept surviving. So that's my favorite game I've ever played in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I'll end with maybe a Mike fan question, and my question is, can you talk about your relationship with Johnny, and then also talk about some of your favorite teammates?
Yeah, Johnny is like so special. I think one of the reasons like we really prioritize our podcast because it's like an hour and a half out of the week where he'll come over and we just get to like talk a little bit and hang out, and that's hard to do with every teammate. So I think that's really what our podcast is. It's just like me and Johnny bonding, and we have very similar but completely different like ultimate backgrounds and stories and personalities too. So he
Do you
keeps
have
me
different?
just like,
You seem like similar people, but
no,
I don't know.
no, he's like the kindest soul. He's like goofy and fun and social, and I can get like hyper focused and serious and like glare. But I'm getting better at that. He's making me more fun. I
Uh-huh.
guarantee you all my teammates would say the same thing. But yeah, so he's super special. And then on the field, like, when I had my really bad injuries in 2021, I was just like stand behind him and reset him the disc, and it was great. Make my 2 yard cut, and yeah, now that I'm drifted off to the other line, it's a little sad I don't get to hear him in the huddle, but I think that he's still like he's the gift to DC men's ultimate right now. As for my other favorite teammates, Cricket was an inspiration earlier, not just with the trick throws, but he was just like just what he could do with the frisbee was super cool. Russell Wallach, great captain. He personally cut me, but it was like he is still super important, and we text to this day. In DC, Nikki Spive and I had great chemistry on and off the field. And he just had a baby, and wishing him the best. And Tyler Monroe's been like my best on the field friend and training partner, so he's in the conversation as well.
Uh, Tyler seems like a good leader.
Yeah, he loves the game, loves the sport. Yeah, he tries 100% all the time. That's like kind of what kind of DC started with is just effort. We didn't
Try
really have
hard.
the college pipeline thing. We just tried
Kins, how
and
did you
didn't
describe
care.
his game?
I always thought of him as like a stomper because he was just running so hard. Like that's how I always thought of him.
Yeah, yeah, his effort comes through his running mechanics, and yeah, we
Yeah,
all
he was
tell
just
him that
always
too.
such a
But
stomper.
still gets open on the open
It's
side every
crazy.
single
Like, hey,
time.
yeah,
He's our
it's
only,
yeah,
he's our
and
only
like I
one.
just remember him do it. I've like been watching him do it, for a while, and I always thought he was good. And then he's also gained more recognition recently. So it's cool.
Um, well, you and Johnny won't be separated for. What do you think? Do you have any idea what's going to happen on Truck Cell Line?
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm hands off on truck stop roster everything. I'm but we'll
Depending
see.
on Jack.
I think I played these. Depending on Jack. No, I think if Jack comes, he'll play defense with me. So so he
Wow.
says. So he says. So he says. But no, I think I'll play defense. That's like I'm committed to it and it's
Really?
going but I don't know. I'm down
That's
for
blowing
whatever.
my mind.
I love it. I think that's sick.
Quinn and
I don't have
Kins
that many
take the lead.
defense.
Quinn and Kins will be on our D line this year.
Yeah.
Oh
Wait,
yeah.
what? What
Oh yeah.
happened?
We're following
We gotta
the
upgrade it.
Yeah, we're
yeah,
following.
upgrading. Rowan's a trailblazer. We're following his lead.
Okay. Why is it me though?
And that way,
What,
Rowan,
what did
Rowan
I?
can't guard
Well,
me then
both of you,
too.
both of you.
Okay.
Both.
Let's just take our whole O line and put them on D line.
Flip-flop.
That'd be cool.
Kins, Quinn, any final thoughts or questions for Rowan?
Now that was covered
That
everything
was
I
awesome.
wanted to talk about.
I'm all set.
Yeah,
Can we get a genuine Rowan here though? Just it's from the man himself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are we gonna open with this? All right. Rowan here.
Yes, yes.
It's like 90% real and then 10% YouTube
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah, I
Rowan
love
here.
it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm
No,
gonna go ahead.
I like it.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
no, that was a sweep.
I'm gonna post another version of it too because I have like you actually in all of your YouTube videos, and you're getting slightly older throughout the years.
Oh
Oh,
no.
nice. This
Heck
one.
yeah.
All right, sweet. Yeah, throw that up. Let me see.
All right, Rowan. Well, thanks for coming on, Kins and Quinn. I'll see you in less than an hour here at the bird scrimmage. But
Don't remind me.
Rowan, best of luck to you this weekend against Carolina. I can't say I'll be rooting for you, but I'm definitely I'm looking forward to seeing you on the
I don't
field
know.
again this year.
After the pod, I might be rooting for DC now.
Yeah, I'm ruined.
Yeah, maybe you're right. We're just Rowan fans at this point.
We had a good run last year. We had a good run last year. We'll see. See what happens this year.
Big
New year.
upgrades. We didn't even touch the Breeze roster upgrades,
Oh my
which
God,
were
yeah.
significant.
Yeah.
By the way,
It's gonna be exciting.
Um,
Super team.
yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Take that super team. Beat New York for us. Maybe give us the home playoff game. That'd be sweet.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I don't know who I'd root for in that game. No.
Us because it helps you. So if you know any tidbits, anything you need to let us know before that game, give us
Yeah.
all the info.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously.
What do the
Yeah,
players like to
Jerry,
do?
be
Where do
careful.
they like to throw it? We'll make sure to take care of them. Yeah, because that's honestly that's
Throws the bat at 12 feet and he catches it every single time. So,
We might have some availability issues during that game, unfortunately, but I think we'll do okay.
now we're making excuses already. I hate that. You sound like Quinn.
Sorry. Never mind. It'll be a good game. It'll be a good game. Can't wait for New York to be here. Rowan, good luck. We'll see you on the field soon, I hope. All right.
all right, thanks, y'all. Much love.
Peace out, everybody.